I should never have gone back to Shatterpine Reach. Every instinct I've ever trusted told me to leave that place behind like a half-remembered nightmare. The kind you don't speak of because saying it aloud might make the shadows climb out of the dark and reclaim you. But instincts are fickle things. Curiosity is stronger. Guilt stronger still. And there was something else pulling at me. A pressure in the back of my mind like a hand pushing my skull forward. Whispering. Not in words, but in a sensation. That I had unfinished business there. The forest remembers those who leave it. And it despises those who return. The road began dissolving long before I reached the tree line. Asphalt cracked like sunburnt skin. Weeds splitting the lines where tires once rolled. The last-mile marker had toppled, bent at a sick angle as if something strong had shouldered past it and kept walking. My truck groaned as I slowed to a stop at the edge of the woods. Shatterpine Reach rose before me, a silhouette against the dull gray sky. Even from the outside, the trees looked wrong. Crooked, spiraled. Branches split into branches that split again and again like an endless series of broken mirrors. I killed the engine. The sudden silence punched into my chest. I thought I was ready. I'd rehearsed this for months. Wake up before dawn. Pack only what I could carry. Head north and don't think. If I thought too much, I'd turn back. If I turned back, the memories would follow. And if the memories followed, I'd start doubting what happened in those woods 10 years ago. That was the worst part. Not the nightmares. Not the shadows twitching behind my eyes. But the creeping fear that maybe I imagined everything. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. I know what I ran from. The tree line loomed like a great ribcage, and I felt myself stepping toward it before I consciously decided to move. The air changed as I crossed the threshold. It always does. The outside world hums with life, wind, insects, distant traffic, the static of existence. Inside the reach, the silence is thick enough to bite. I swear I could hear my heartbeat echoing off the bark. For a moment, I considered turning back to grab my flashlight from the truck. But I knew better. Light does strange things in Shatterpine. It bends around corners that shouldn't exist, stretches shadows until they look like something alive. It makes the trees seem aware that you're watching, and they hate being watched. I tightened the straps of my pack and forced myself deeper in. The air smelled of sap and iron, a metallic sweetness that curled unpleasantly at the back of my throat. The soil, soft and spongy, muffled my footsteps until it felt like I was walking on lungs. Within minutes, the sky disappeared behind the canopy. It was exactly as I remembered. Every tree shared the same unnatural geometry. Trunks cracked open like jagged mouths, branches splitting at sharp, wrong angles. The bark shimmered faintly, patterns shifting when I wasn't looking directly at them. If I looked too long, they began to swirl, hypnotic and fractal. It took everything in me not to stare. I counted my steps under my breath. 1, 2, 3. Numbers kept the thoughts straight. Without numbers, the forest had a tendency to rearrange itself. Pathways looped back. Distances didn't behave. It got inside your head, loosened things that weren't meant to be loose. At step 173, a familiar sensation flickered at the base of my skull. Not again, I thought. Not this soon. The pressure crept upward, filling my vision with static like the moment before a migraine. I pressed my palm to the nearest tree, not looking at it, just feeling its roughness. It grounded me, kept me present. You're intruding, the forest seemed to say. You shouldn't have come back. I swallowed and kept walking. The deeper I went, the more my memories rose like steam around me. In daylight, they weren't as sharp as the nightmares, but they were real enough. I could see flashes of that summer. The 6 of us laughing as we pitched tents, roasted marshmallows, swapped ghost stories we pretended not to believe. We were young, dumb, full of bravado. And Shatterpine Reach was just a place on a map, a patch of wilderness no different from any other. Until night fell, until we found the clearing, until the trees began to move. My boots snapped a fallen twig, and the sound jolted me back to the present. The forest seemed to flinch at the noise, branches shivering overhead. The wind didn't cause that. There was no wind in Shatterpine. The air stayed unervingly still, like it was holding its breath. I forced myself deeper. My destination waited another mile in, a place I hadn't set foot since that night. A place I'd sworn I would never see again. But I needed answers. Needed to know why the forest let me live and swallowed everyone else. The silence thickened. My pulse grew louder. Then I heard it, soft at first, like water dripping in a cave. Rhythmic tapping, irregular but deliberate. Top, 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 top. I froze. My hands curled into fists, nails digging into my palms. Not again. The tapping wasn't loud. It wasn't threatening. It was worse, it was familiar. Intimately familiar. The sound that haunted me for 10 years. The sound I heard when I ran screaming through the trees, heart slamming against my ribs, lungs tearing themselves raw. The sound of something following me. I forced myself not to turn around. Looking invites it closer. Looking acknowledges it. But the tapping grew louder. Top, 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 top. Behind me, the branches rustled. The air tightened. I clenched my jaw, fighting the instinct to sprint. Running only made it hungry. Running meant you believed it was real. And the only rule I remembered from that night was this: don't let the forest know you believe in it. I kept walking. The tapping followed. 20 paces later, the pressure in my skull eased. The tapping faded, retreating into the depths of the woods. I exhaled shakily. My shirt clung to my back with cold sweat. I hate this place. The path twisted left, though I knew for a fact it used to twist right. My memory and the forest never agreed. I stepped over a tangle of roots that looked too much like fingers. The tree beside me groaned, a low creaking sound like bones grinding. Hours passed, though time in the reach was unreliable at best. Could have been minutes. Or days. My pack weighed heavier with each step, though I'd barely packed anything. The forest worked its exhaustion into the spine, up the limbs until every muscle trembled. Eventually, I saw a glimmer of pale light ahead. Relief surged through me. I recognized that clearing. I wished I didn't. Stepping into it felt like plunging into a forgotten memory. The trees here bent outward in a perfect circle, their branches spiraling upward like ribs of a colossus. The ground was strangely smooth, as if something had scraped it clean. In the center of the clearing lay a patch of earth darker than the soil around it. The place where we camped. The place where everything went wrong. My breath hitched. I forced myself to move slowly, not to disturb the fragile silence. The forest hated abruptness. It noticed, remembered, punished. I unshouldered my pack and knelt beside the darkened spot. My fingers hovered over the soil. Okay, I whispered to myself. My voice sounded foreign. You came back. You're here. Remember what you saw. But memory was dangerous here. It mingled with hallucination, bent itself into shapes that didn't belong in any sane world. Still, I needed to try. I closed my eyes, and the clearing changed. It didn't shift physically. Nothing in the forest moved visibly. But the atmosphere thickened, the darkness behind my eyelids blooming into shapes. Shadows bent. Laughter echoed. Our laughter, bright and stupid and human. The crackle of the campfire. The pop of sap bursting inside logs. Jill humming quietly while she braided Carson's hair. Miles complaining about the cold. Nika trying to scare us with a ghost story she barely remembered. And me. I was 20. Reckless. Arrogant. I thought the world was a thing that yielded to willpower. Then the tapping started. The memory sharpened, as clear as the night itself. It came from the trees surrounding the clearing, soft at first, curious, like knuckles brushing bark. We joked, laughed, threw rocks at the branches. The tapping grew louder. Miles threw another rock. Something threw it back. I felt my pulse spike, my eyelids twitching. The clearing around me pulsed. I forced myself to breathe. The memory kept unfolding. The trees swayed, not in wind, but in unity. Their branches spiraled, twisting inward like a tightening noose. Jill screamed first. Carson grabbed the hatchet. Miles froze. Nika stepped back, tripped, fell. And me? I stared. Too long. I stared at the fractal limbs, the impossible geometry. the shapes that split and multiplied, the patterns that burrowed into thought and cracked it open like an egg. I stared until my vision collapsed into chaos. Last thing I remembered was the forest leaning toward us. Then darkness. Then running. Always running. I opened my eyes with a gasp. My whole body shook. The clearing felt smaller than before, as if the trees had taken a single step closer. My throat tightened. Okay, I told myself. That's enough. Time to leave. But when I reached for my pack, I froze. It wasn't where I set it. It now sat 10 feet away, near the exact center of the clearing. I stared. Hard. No. No. I didn't move it. I hadn't even left my spot. The forest had moved it. The pressure returned at the base of my skull. The air buzzed. The soil beneath my boots pulsed faintly, like a slow heartbeat. Something was watching. Don't look, I whispered. But I did. In the treeline ahead of me, something shifted. At first it looked like a cluster of bark, a knot of gnarled wood. But knots didn't breathe. Knots didn't blink. The shape leaned forward. Slightly, its limbs branching in fractal spirals. Its silhouette was almost human. Almost, but stretched wrong, like a reflection in rippled water. Tapped the tree beside it. Once, twice, 3 times. I stumbled back. My heel hit a root. The creature, or the forest, or whatever Shatterpine uses as vessels, cocked its head. Its branches curled, unfurling like broken fingers. I forced myself to look away, but it was too late. It had seen me. The pressure in my skull bloomed into pain. My vision fractured. The trees twitched at the edges of sight, drawing closer. The air tasted metallic, like the moment before lightning strikes. I grabbed my pack. God knows how I reached it and ran. The forest responded instantly. Branches whipped overhead. Roots twisted, tripping my feet. The tapping echoed, louder, faster, surrounding me on all sides. Shapes darted between the trunks, too quick to identify. Whispers hissed in my ears, not in language but in rhythm, like heartbeat static. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. Every instinct told me to stop looking at anything unfamiliar, which was impossible because everything in Shatterpine was unfamiliar. The forest bent around me. Pathways dissolved. The ground sloped downward in ways that defied gravity. A tree I passed once appeared ahead of me again, its spiral branches mocking me. I kept running. Pain exploded in my shoulder as a low branch slammed into me. I spun, fell hard. The world tilted. Soil filled my mouth. I spat, scrambled to my feet. Behind me, something stepped out from the trees. Not running, not rushing, just following. Deliberate, patient, confident. I forced air into my lungs. My voice cracked as I whispered, "You don't exist." The forest chuckled. Not a sound, but a vibration through the ground. The creature tapped again, and I ran until my legs buckled. I don't know how long I ran. Hours, maybe. The sky never changed. The forest never thinned. My breath became a ragged wheeze. My vision blurred around the edges. Then suddenly the tapping stopped. The silence rushed in, suffocating. I collapsed against a fallen log. My limbs trembled uncontrollably. I pressed my forehead to the bark, letting the roughness scrape grounding lines into my skin. Slowly, painfully, the pressure in my head eased. I was alive, for now. But the forest wasn't done with me. It never would be. As my breathing calmed, I realized something horrifying. This wasn't anywhere near the path I came in on. The forest had turned me around, intentionally. It wanted me deeper, and for reasons I couldn't name, I felt a distant tug in my chest. A call. Something in the heart of Shatterpine was waiting for me. Something that survived that night. Something that remembered my name. I forced myself upright, every muscle screaming in protest. The ground beneath my palms was damp and cold, soaked with years of decayed leaves and forgotten rain. Shatterpine Reach had a way of pretending the days hadn't passed, that the night I fled into it 10 years ago was still happening, just on a loop. I felt that truth like an ache in my bones. The forest doesn't forget, and it doesn't forgive. I looked around. The trees were taller here, their spirals twisting toward each other like they were conspiring. Shadows moved between them, but not like shadows should. They slid, pulsed, grew and shrank as if breathing. My rational mind screamed that this was hallucination, that it was stress and fear, but my instincts didn't lie. Shatterpine was alive, aware, and aware of me. Something cracked behind me. A subtle snap that might have been a branch, might have been a rib. I froze, barely breathing, listening. "Who's there?" I called. My voice sounded small, feeble, even to me. No answer, just the soft murmur of the forest itself. I started walking again, slow, deliberate. Every step mattered. Every misstep invited consequences I didn't want to test. I had learned that on my first night in this forest. Running made it stronger. Hesitation, paradoxically, made it weaker. But I could never decide which I needed more. The path, if you could call it that, twisted impossibly. Trees that had been behind me appeared to my left. Roots writhed like serpents, reaching for my boots. I stumbled but caught myself. My breath fogged in the cold, damp air. Each inhale carried a taste of iron and decay. Then I heard it, laughter. Not the laughter of memory, but new, darker, hollow. It rolled across the trees, bouncing and fracturing with each echo. I froze. That laughter had intent behind it. It was not random, not wind, not an animal. It knew I was here. I whispered to myself, "Keep walking." I walked, but the forest had begun to manipulate my senses. Branches stretched unnaturally overhead, bending to obscure the faint moonlight, twisting my shadow into grotesque shapes. Leaves brushed my face, but when I wiped them away, my hand touched something wrong, something warm, something alive. Panic gnawed at me, but I suppressed it. Panic was dangerous. Here, the forest loved panic. It thrived on the mind unsteady, on fear that fractured perception. I pressed on, trying to recall the landmarks I remembered. There was a stone outcropping, jagged and slick with moss. A pond that reflected the sky like a black mirror. The clearing where everything had begun. If I could reach those, I might orient myself. But orientation was a lie. The reach doesn't work in straight lines. It folds over itself, warps the familiar, mocks the remembered. I realized I was moving in circles, though every instinct screamed that I was moving forward. The trees knew me. They had cataloged every step I had ever taken, and now they toyed with me. Then I saw movement, a flicker at the edge of my vision. Something darted between the trunks. A human shape, twisted, limbs unnaturally long, branching like the trees themselves. I blinked, and it was gone. I shouted, voice cracking, "Show yourself." The forest answered, not with words, but with a tap. A single, deliberate knock against the trunk of the nearest tree. It resonated through the clearing, through the ground, through me. I wanted to run, but I knew better. I had learned in the years after that first night what Shatterpine wanted. It didn't chase. It waits. It observes. And when you move wrong, it punishes. My legs carried me forward anyway, dragging against the ground as if the soil itself was trying to hold me back. I came to a hillock and paused. At the top, I could see the faint outlines of the trees beyond. But something was different. The canopy above formed a perfect circle, branches interlocking like a crown. And in that circle, something waited. It was barely visible at first. A silhouette, hunched, motionless. But the way it stood, the way its limbs curved and spiraled, betrayed a consciousness. I felt its gaze like needles on my skin. "You shouldn't be here," I whispered, my own voice strange in the silence. The figure tilted its head. Then it moved, slowly, deliberately, each step folding the world slightly in on itself. Shadows bent toward it, light fractured. I realized that what I had feared 10 years ago was still alive, still waiting, and it remembered me. I wanted to flee, but I could not. My body was frozen, rooted to the soil like one of the corrupted trees. The creature stepped closer. Its face, or what I wanted to call a face, was a void, and yet I felt it pierce into my thoughts. Memories rose unbidden. Names I hadn't said in a decade. Faces I had buried. Pain I thought I had forgotten. You ran, it said, not with sound, but with sensation. The words slammed into me like icy water.
"He survived?" he whispered.
You survived, it repeated, twisting the meaning until it felt like accusation. But they did not. I swallowed. My throat was dry. My hands shook. I forced myself to take a step backward. The creature mirrored me perfectly until I felt a sickening vertigo. I stumbled, nearly falling, and the trees themselves seemed to lean closer, their branches curling toward me like hands. Then the tapping started again. Around me, not from the figure, but from the trees themselves. Each tap resonated in my chest. Each tap pulled at the edges of my sanity. My vision blurred. The forest was alive, more than alive, it was intelligent, malevolent, and it was orchestrating a symphony of terror around me. I realized then that the tapping was not random. It was spelling something, pattern, a warning, or a message. My mind, desperate for understanding, tried to follow it. And I saw it. In the fractal splits of the limbs, the spacing of the branches, the rhythm of the taps. My own memories were replayed. The night of the tragedy, distorted but undeniable. The creature stepped closer, its body elongated, splitting into fractals of itself, multiple versions, each one a shadow of horror. It mirrored my own movements, my panic, my terror. And then it spoke again. Return what is mine. I had no idea what it meant. I had no idea what it wanted. And yet, the forest whispered answers, teasing them, dangling pieces of understanding like flies just out of reach. Panic broke over me and I ran. Running in Shatterpine Reach is like moving through wet cement. Every step fights you. Every breath costs more than it should. Shadows claw at your ankles. Roots try to trip you. The trees reach. They twist. They spiral. And yet, always, you are moving exactly where they want you. I ran until I could no longer hear the tapping. Or maybe it never stopped, and my ears had simply surrendered. I could not tell. I fell into a small hollow, gasping, pressed against a tree trunk, trying to force myself to calm down. And then I heard it, the faintest whisper, brushing against my consciousness like silk soaked in poison. Why did you come back? I pressed my hands to my ears, but it was not sound. It was thought, intrusive, invasive, the forest reaching into me. I needed answers. I whispered, my lips trembling. Answers or punishment? I wanted to scream, but no sound came. The hollow around me shifted subtly. Shadows elongated. My mind fractured slightly. Doubt seeped in. Fear. Paranoia. I realized that the forest did not merely observe, it manipulates memory. The edge between what I remembered and what it imposed blurred. And then I saw it. The clearing from that night. The exact moment. The fire, the laughter, the terror. Only now, the shadows were moving independently. The trees themselves bent over us, grasping, swallowing. I could see the others, but they were not alive, not fully. Puppets. Twisted echoes. Their faces a mask of horror. Couldn't breathe. The figure emerged fully now. Its limbs were a network of branching fractals, stretching impossibly high. Space or void, tilted toward me. My body screamed at me to run, to hide, to fight. And yet, a part of me, stubborn, foolish, stepped forward. What do you want? I asked. My voice was steady, though my insides quivered. The figure paused. The world seemed to pause with it. And then, in a manner that was both terrifying and mesmerizing, it split. Fractals of itself multiplied, forming a circle around me, each one identical yet slightly different. They tapped the trees in a synchronized rhythm. The pattern was hypnotic. I felt my knees weaken. My mind screamed. And then, understanding flickered. It wanted me to remember. Not selectively, not safely. It wanted the entire night, every detail, every nuance. It wanted me to relive it, to see what truly happened, not the fragments I had buried under denial and guilt. You ran, it whispered. You survived. And yet you must see. I nodded, unable to speak, and the forest obeyed. The trees around me bent, twisted, and the shadows thickened. The clearing was alive again, replaying the horror. Only now I was not a spectator. I was present. Every moment, every scream, every misstep was mine to bear. And the tapping became unbearable. I fell to my knees. My eyes burned. My ears rang. My mind teetered on the edge of collapse. And then, in the center of it all, I saw her. Jill. Her face pale, eyes wide with terror. And behind her, something that should not exist. The forest leaned closer. I was not running anymore. I could not run. I understood then. Shatterpine Reach did not forgive. It did not forget. It only waited for the living to return, for the guilty to relive, for the curious to be broken. And I had returned. I tried to scream, but my throat betrayed me, locking up with the realization that I had been wrong all these years. This wasn't just some bad memory I could outrun. This wasn't just fear twisting my thoughts into something monstrous. Shatterpine Reach didn't care if you believed in it or not. It didn't matter if you wanted to forget. It had been watching me since the day I entered it, since the day I ran from it, and now it had caught me again. I wanted to fall to the ground, to bury my face in the dirt and pretend none of this was real. But I couldn't. The forest wouldn't let me. Every muscle in my body locked in place, not out of my own volition, but because the Reach had claimed me. The trees loomed like watchers, their limbs fracturing outward like claws ready to tear into my flesh. I was here again, reliving it, every moment, every horrible step. Jill's face was frozen in my mind, wide eyes staring up at me through the dim light of the campfire. Her lips were moving, but no sound came. The air felt too thick, pressing in on me like the walls of a coffin, choking out all breath, all hope. I felt the pull of the forest around me, pulling my consciousness back to that first night, pulling me down into the dark where everything had begun. I couldn't stop it. I was helpless to it. The tapping started again, insistent, rhythmic, as if the forest itself was keeping time with the pulsing beat of my own heart.
Top, 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 top.
The branches moved in time with it, bending and twisting like tendrils wrapping around my thoughts, squeezing the life out of them. I heard it again, the sound of Jill's voice, soft and distant. You ran. You left us behind. Why? The words, once so easy to deny, now punched through me with the force of a freight train. I hadn't just run. I had left them behind. All of them. I was the one who made it out. I was the one who survived. But I wasn't free. Not really. Because the forest was holding me. Holding my guilt. Holding my memories. Holding me hostage in the place where it all began. I could see it all again. The flickering campfire, the warmth of the summer night, the careless laughter. We were so young, so stupid, so full of life and false bravado. I remembered Carson and Miles joking around, tossing a football as the night deepened. Nika leaning against a tree, her hair braided and catching the light of the fire. Jill was sitting next to me, her eyes shining with a spark I couldn't quite place, but I had taken it for something else. I had thought we were safe, that nothing in the world could touch us. Then the tapping started.
Top, 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 top.
The first sound so soft that no one noticed. But it was there, always there. The way the trees around us bent and stretched, the way the fire flickered unnaturally. These were the first signs, though none of us understood them. The signs of something ancient stirring. Something that had waited for years, for decades, for centuries. It began with Jill's voice, the way she first noticed the strange sounds in the trees. Then Carson had laughed it off, claiming it was just a bird or some small animal. But the tapping didn't stop. It grew louder, insistent, unfamiliar, and then it began. One by one, we fell silent as the trees started to move. At first, it was subtle, just a slight shifting of branches, the kind of movement that might have been mistaken for a breeze. But the air was still, so still it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. Jill stood first, her face pale, eyes scanning the shadows. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. I had wanted to reassure her, to tell her it was just the wind. But I knew it wasn't. I glanced over at Carson, then at Nika. We were all slowly becoming aware of something we hadn't wanted to believe. The trees weren't just moving. They were shifting, twisting, bending like they were trying to reach us. And then the tapping came again. Louder this time. Closer.
Top. Top, top. Top.
My heart started pounding. The others were looking around now, their faces twisting with confusion. Fear. What the hell is that? Miles asked, his voice shaking. None of us could answer, because we didn't know. The trees were no longer still. They were alive, or something inside them was. Branches reached for us. Twisted shapes formed in the corners of our eyes, shapes that didn't belong in this world. And then, the worst of it, the silence fell over us. Everything stopped. The tapping, the rustling, the movement. For a moment, it was as if the entire forest was holding its breath, waiting for us to make a move. I remember looking at Jill. She was standing there, staring into the woods, her eyes wide with something between fear and fascination. "I don't think we should be here," she said, her voice barely a whisper. But it was too late. That's when it all started. The trees seemed to move in unison, twisting and bending, their branches spiraling like the arms of some colossal creature. We couldn't run. We couldn't even move. Every instinct screamed at us to flee, but our feet wouldn't listen. The forest had us locked in place. Jill's scream pierced the silence. A high, terrified sound as one of the trees reached down, its branches bending like fingers, wrapping around her. Her body jerked in the grasp of the twisted limbs. She clawed at the bark, but it was no use. The tree held her with a strength that no human could have matched. "Jill!" Carson shouted, leaping forward, but he was pulled back by something unseen. The air was thick with an unnatural pressure. We were trapped, surrounded, and Jill was being dragged into the heart of the forest, her body jerking like a rag doll, her voice choking out a scream as the trees swallowed her whole. That was the moment I ran. I ran because I could hear the sound of the forest, the tapping, the rustling, the movement, all closing in on me, and I knew that I was next. I ran without thinking, without a plan, without a clue where I was going. I just ran. But when I looked back, when I dared to, I saw the others frozen in place. Miles, Nika, Carson. Their faces were etched in terror. And I realized then that it wasn't just Jill who had been taken. It was all of them. The trees had claimed them, just as they had claimed everything else. I ran, heart pounding in my ears, but no matter how fast I moved, no matter how far I ran, I couldn't escape the trees. They followed me, their limbs stretched after me like the claws of some ancient beast, trying to pull me back into the dark. And the tapping never stopped. It never stopped.
Top. Top, top. Top, top, top.
When I finally reached the edge of the forest, when I collapsed at the clearing, gasping for air, I didn't look back. I didn't dare. I just ran. I ran until I was out of the forest, until the sounds of the tapping faded behind me, until the memory of those faces, their twisted, frozen expressions, began to fade too. But it never really fades. Not entirely. I came back to Shatterpine Reach today, thinking I could put the past behind me. I thought I could face it, that I could somehow undo the damage, reclaim what I had lost. But as I stood in that hollow, watching the shadows stretch, listening to the tapping, I realized I had made a mistake. Shatterpine Reach wasn't a place to be conquered. It was a place to be endured. A place where time was nothing. Memory meant nothing. Life meant nothing. The forest was patient. It waited. And now it was waiting for me again. Waiting to remind me of the truth I had never wanted to accept. The truth that there was no escape. I hadn't just run from Shatterpine Reach. I had become part of it. It would never let me leave. The realization hit me harder than I expected. I thought I had come back to face the forest, to confront the darkness that had consumed my friends. But in truth, I had never left. The forest had never let me go. It had been there, haunting me in the corners of my mind, in the depths of my nightmares, lurking just beneath the surface of every waking moment. The tapping started again. Not from the trees, but from inside my skull.
Top. Top, top, top.
My fingers pressed to my temples, trying to block it out, but the sound filled me, reverberating through my thoughts until it was all I could hear, all I could feel. It was inside me, clawing at my sanity. I couldn't escape it. I couldn't escape this. Please, I whispered into the air. My voice trembled, but I couldn't find the strength to make it steady. Please, leave me alone. But the forest didn't care about please. It didn't care about mercy or forgiveness or even fear. It only cared about one thing: possession. It had claimed me once, and now it wanted me again. I stumbled backward, away from the hollow, but the ground underfoot was uneven, like the forest itself was shifting beneath me. It was as if the earth were alive, responding to my every step, pushing and pulling, guiding me deeper into its maw. The trees leaned in closer, their twisted branches curling and uncurling like 1,000 fingers, reaching for me. The laughter started again. This time it wasn't distant. It was close, too close. I spun, desperate to find the source of it, but the shadows around me twisted, bending into shapes that didn't make sense. Figures formed from the dark, distorted shapes, silhouettes that didn't belong. They danced in the periphery of my vision, vanishing the moment I looked directly at them. And then I saw her, Jill. She stood before me, her figure shrouded in the flickering shadows of the trees. Her face was pale, her hair matted to her scalp with dirt and sweat. Her eyes were wide, wide with something unholy, something inhuman. And she was smiling. I froze. My heart stopped. Jill, I breathed, my voice shaking. Jill, is it really you? She didn't answer. She just stood there, smiling, her mouth stretching wider than it should have, as if her face couldn't contain the thing that was inside of her. Her eyes glowed, but not with life. They were empty, hollow, a reflection of the same void I had seen in the creature, the thing that had taken her. I reached out instinctively, as if I could somehow pull her back, as if I could make her human again. But when my hand brushed hers, she felt cold, colder than anything I had ever known. She didn't flinch. She didn't move. Her hand stayed limp in mine, but her gaze never wavered. She was watching me, waiting. Then she spoke, but her voice wasn't Jill's. It was something darker, something alien. You shouldn't have come back, she said, her voice a distorted echo, reverberating in the air around me. You never should have left. The words stabbed into me like needles, digging into my flesh, twisting inside me. I gasped, the pressure in my chest rising. It felt like the forest itself was speaking through her, like she was no longer human, but a conduit for something older, something far worse. I started, but my voice faltered. I didn't know what to say. How could I explain that I had only come back to find the truth? To put an end to the nightmares? I had never wanted to abandon them, never wanted to leave them behind. But Jill was right. I had left. I had run, and I had never looked back. I didn't leave you, I whispered, though I wasn't sure I even believed it anymore. I tried to survive. I thought, you left us to die. Her smile widened, grotesque and unnatural. She stepped closer, her feet silent on the forest floor, her eyes never leaving mine. Every step she took, the tapping grew louder, pulsed through the trees, through the ground, through my bones.
Top, 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 top.
You ran, and you left us? Jill's voice rasped, her mouth unmoving as if she were speaking through clenched teeth. You ran when we needed you. You didn't even look back. Couldn't breathe. My chest tightened with guilt, with the weight of years of regret pressing down on me. The truth of it, the horror of it, was more than I could bear. I had turned my back on them, on all of them, and in doing so, I had condemned them to this. Jill's form flickered. For a brief moment, her face softened, her eyes becoming human again, pleading, please, don't let it take you too. But then the figure warped again. The smile stretched wider. Her form rippled, like the shadows around her were distorting her shape. She stepped back, her face becoming twisted once more, her mouth opening too wide, her teeth too sharp. I recoiled, stumbling backward. The forest around me seemed to hold its breath. The air grew colder, the trees pressing in, the shadows stretching longer, deeper. I was trapped again, just like I had been that night. "I'm sorry," I whispered, but the words felt hollow. The tapping kept growing louder. My ears rang with it, and then Jill was gone. She dissolved into the shadows, vanishing as though she had never been there at all. The forest was silent once more, but the tapping didn't stop. It had changed, though. Now it wasn't coming from the trees. It was coming from inside my head. I pressed my hands to my ears, but it didn't matter. The tapping was relentless, filling every corner of my mind, until it was the only sound in the world.
Top, 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 top.
The pressure in my skull grew unbearable. My knees buckled, and I sank to the ground, gasping for air. Sweat streamed down my face, my vision blurring. I tried to focus, tried to think, but the forest was pulling at me again. The air was too thick, too heavy, like it was closing in on me. And then, through the haze, I saw something. Something moving between the trees. Something large, shadowy, too dark to make out clearly. I stepped into the clearing. I tried to scream, but my throat was too dry. My mouth worked soundlessly as the creature came into view, its form growing larger with every step. It was massive, taller than any man, its limbs long and twisted, each one branching out like a fractal, splitting into more limbs, into more branches. Its body was covered in bark, its face an unsettling blankness, an absence of any features. And its eyes were pools of blackness, hollow and infinite. Tapped again, 3 times.
Top, 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 top.
The sound seemed to carry a weight with it, an invisible pressure that pressed against my chest, making it harder to breathe. "You are mine now," the creature spoke, not with a voice, but with a sensation. It didn't need words. It was beyond words. It didn't speak in language, but in thought, in feeling, in presence. I could feel it inside me, shifting, stirring my memories, pulling at the dark corners of my mind. Couldn't look away. I tried to speak, but my voice failed me. My mind was unraveling. The tapping had become unbearable, a sound that bled into everything, warping my perception, my sense of self. The creature leaned closer, its limbs reaching out, and I could feel the forest shifting with it, bending, folding, collapsing around me like it was going to consume me whole. I tried to move, to run, but my legs wouldn't respond. The tapping continued, faster now, harder, like a countdown to something I couldn't escape. "You can't leave," the creature whispered, its eyes narrowing into slits. "Not anymore," the forest responded. It didn't matter if I wanted to leave. I wasn't getting out. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. My chest was tight, crushed under the weight of the tapping. The thing that had once been Jill, the thing that was no longer even a thing, it was the forest, it was the creature, it was everything that I had tried to forget, now right in front of me. The tapping. It had been building, gaining strength, a relentless rhythm that was tearing apart my consciousness piece by piece. I could feel it now, the very pulse of the forest, the thrum of its ancient life force vibrating through the ground, through the air, through my blood.
Top, 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 top.
I looked at the creature again. Its face was gone. There was no longer any feature to it, just a vast emptiness where its head had been. The limbs, those twisted, fractal arms, reached out, brushing against the trees, and the air seemed to tremble with an ancient hunger. "You think you're the first?" The sound came, deep, inside my skull, a cold whisper that wasn't the creature's voice, but the forest's. "You think you're the first to come here, to think you could escape, to believe that leaving means forgetting?" I wanted to scream, to lash out, to say anything, but my voice was lost, trapped in the suffocating quiet of the forest. The tapping kept pounding, and the forest pulled closer. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. It was feeding on me, feeding on my guilt, on my fear, on the shattered fragments of memory I had buried so deeply. The forest was not just alive. It was aware. It knew me. It knew my weaknesses. It knew everything about me, about that night, about the others, and it knew that I was the reason they were gone. I had abandoned them. I had left them behind. But now it was pulling me back. It was twisting my memories, distorting them, making me relive it all over again. It was making me feel what I had tried to forget. The fear, the terror, the helplessness of seeing Jill, seeing all of them, trapped in the forest's embrace, their faces twisted with horror, their bodies bent at unnatural angles, pulled into the trees like marionettes, puppets to the forest's will. "You are mine now," the creature whispered again, its presence seeping into my thoughts, its coldness wrapping around my chest like a vice. "You will never leave." I wanted to scream, to fight, to run, but my body wouldn't move. The tapping had grown louder, faster, pounding in my head like a drumbeat. The trees around me were bending, twisting, their branches curling inward, stretching toward me like fingers that wanted to pull me into the ground. "You never left," the voice continued, growing more insistent, more frantic. "You belong to me." I closed my eyes, trying to block it out, trying to focus on anything else, but it was impossible. The tapping filled my mind, drowning out everything else. It was as if the entire forest was speaking to me, invading my very thoughts, twisting everything until I couldn't tell what was real anymore. The faces of my friends blurred before me, their eyes wide with fear, their mouths open in silent screams. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just a forest. It was a prison. I had run from it. I had left them. But the forest was patient. The forest never forgets. And now it was taking me just like it had taken them. I tried to fight it, tried to break free, but my body wouldn't respond. My limbs felt heavy, like the very earth was pulling me down, holding me in place. I felt the pressure building in my chest, as if the forest was trying to crush me, to remake me into one of them, into one of the shadows, one of the hollowed-out, twisted remnants of the ones it had claimed. I opened my eyes, and there, standing before me, was Jill. Not the version from before. This wasn't the girl I had known. This was something else. Her eyes were empty, her face a twisted, contorted version of the girl I once cared for. Her limbs were stretched, bent, her body wrong, too long, too thin, like the trees themselves. Her mouth opened, but instead of speaking, there was only a low, guttural noise. A whisper that was more like a growl, a rasp. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to run, to get away from her, but I knew it wouldn't matter. The forest had already claimed me. "Do you remember?" she asked. Her voice was distorted, like something dragging itself through the mud. "Do you remember the last time you saw us?" I felt my stomach twist, my throat closing. Yes, I remembered. I had looked back at them once, just once, before I turned and ran. I had seen Jill's face, pale and scared, and I had seen her eyes that begged me to stay. But I hadn't. I had run. The tapping was louder now. The shadows had grown thick, too thick. I couldn't see clearly. My heart was pounding in my chest, the thrum of it matching the beat of the tapping, pulsing through me. "You're a part of it now," Jill's voice rasped. "You're part of the forest, part of the shadows. You can never leave. You can never forget." I wanted to scream, but the words didn't come. I could feel my chest tightening, suffocating, the forest closing in on me. The trees were bending now, arching over me, their branches touching my skin, curling around me like chains. But I couldn't move. I couldn't escape. I couldn't do anything. "I'm sorry," I whispered, though I wasn't even sure who I was apologizing to. To them? To Jill? To myself? The tapping grew louder still. It was deafening now. My skull felt like it was going to crack open. The forest, the thing that had once been the forest, was screaming at me inside my head, inside my soul. It was pulling at me, pulling me into the earth, into the darkness. "You should have stayed," Jill's voice echoed through my mind. "You should have stayed with us. Now you'll never escape." The world tilted. The ground beneath me felt like it was falling away, and the trees leaned in closer, their branches twisting and snapping, their shadows swallowing me whole. The tapping was all I could hear, all I could feel.
Top, 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 top.
It was over. I knew it. There was no escape. There was only the forest. Only Shatterpine Reach. Only the endless tapping. I closed my eyes, the darkness swallowing me whole. And then nothing. There was no tapping. No whispering. No movement. For a moment, I thought perhaps the forest had finally taken me, that I had crossed over into whatever darkness awaited those who were swallowed whole. But in that stillness, a different sensation pressed in on me, a feeling of waiting. I opened my eyes, but the world around me was no longer the same. The trees were still there, tall and impossibly twisted, their fractal branches reaching out like hands eager to pull me into their embrace. But there was something off. The shadows, once dark and malevolent, now seemed deeper, thicker. They felt alive and familiar. I stood somehow. I could move again, though my legs felt heavy, unsteady, as if I were walking on an unfamiliar surface. I looked around, trying to get my bearings, but everything was distorted, shifting. The trees seemed to pulse, bending and stretching in ways that defied logic. The ground beneath me was soft, as though I were walking through damp moss, but my feet sank deeper than they should have. I could feel it, something beneath me, moving just out of reach. The air was thick. It felt like breathing in smoke, like the forest was exhaling its presence directly into my lungs, filling me with the weight of its centuries-old malice. I could feel the tapping again, now faint but insistent, a rhythm that seemed to belong to the very heartbeat of this place. And then I saw it, them. A figure, or rather a shape, materialized in front of me. The shadows pulled back, retreating just enough to reveal a distorted silhouette. It wasn't Jill. It wasn't Carson. It wasn't any of the others. But I knew what it was. A remnant. The figure stood tall, impossibly tall, its limbs stretched and bent in unnatural angles, its body a twisted mockery of human form. The head was a void, a hollow space where a face should have been. The body was clothed in shadows that dripped like ink, swirling around it like a cloak. And its eyes, those eyes, were pinpricks of darkness, a bottomless well that seemed to see everything, to know everything. It didn't speak. It didn't need to. I could feel its presence, a suffocating weight pressing against my chest, against my thoughts. It wasn't just there. It was inside me, a part of me just as the forest was now. I felt the tapping again, louder now, as if the very ground beneath me was vibrating. The figure stepped forward, and the shadows seemed to bend toward it, crawling across the forest floor like tendrils, reaching out for me. "You are the same as them," the figure whispered, though its mouth never moved. The words came from everywhere, inside my head, inside the forest. "You are the same." I wanted to scream, to tell it was wrong, but no sound came. I could barely think, my mind fogged with the weight of the forest's presence. The tapping filled my head, drowning out everything else. The rhythm was relentless, suffocating. "You will become one of us," the figure continued. "You will become the forest." I stumbled backward, my feet sinking into the soft earth. The shadows reached for me, pulling at my limbs, dragging me toward the figure. I fought to move, to get away, but it was impossible. The forest had already claimed me. The tapping, now louder, faster, beat against my skull, pulling me into the rhythm of the trees, into the pulse of the ancient thing that lived beneath the earth. "No," I gasped, but the word didn't feel like it belonged to me. The forest had swallowed my voice. "No, I won't become one of you." The figure tilted its head, and I could feel the weight of its gaze pressing against me. The tapping stopped for a moment, the silence stretching unbearably long. And then the figure spoke again, but this time its voice, if it could be called that, was thick with ancient power, with centuries of hunger. "You already are," it said. I felt the ground shift beneath me, the roots of the trees rising up like veins, twisting and writhing like snakes beneath the soil. I could feel them, feel their presence, their hunger. The forest was not just alive. It was aware, watching me, feeding on me, waiting for me to become one of its twisted branches, one of its endless roots. I tried to scream again, but it was useless. My body refused to respond. I could feel my limbs going numb, my thoughts slipping away, replaced by the endless rhythm of the tapping. I could hear it now, like a drumbeat in my chest, like the heartbeat of the forest itself. And then, just as it had done before, the tapping started to form words, to shape the rhythm into meaning. Not a voice, not a sound, but something far worse. The tapping was speaking to me, telling me things I had never wanted to hear. You belong here now. You always have. You can't leave. You never left. You're a part of this. The words drilled into my skull, like needles, like the pounding of a hammer against my mind. I felt the pull of the forest, the desire to surrender, to let it take me, to let it break me into pieces and fold me into itself, to make me just another remnant, another shadow lost in the trees. And in that moment I understood something, a terrible, sickening understanding that ripped through me like a blade. The forest didn't want my body. It didn't care about my flesh. It didn't need to consume me in the way I had imagined. No, the forest wanted my mind. It wanted to break me, to make me part of its endless, eternal memory, to twist my consciousness into something new, something it could control, something it could remember. And in that moment, I realized the forest had already won. I could feel the memories flooding back. My friends, the campfire, the laughter, the terror, the faces of the people I had abandoned. They were all there, trapped in the forest, their faces twisted in horror, their bodies bent at unnatural angles, pulled into the earth, swallowed by the roots. They were there, in the trees, in the shadows, their eyes staring out at me, their voices silent in the dark. And then, for a split second, I saw her again, Jill. Her face was the same as it had been that night, before everything had gone wrong. Her eyes were wide with terror, but there was something else there, something in her expression that spoke of something beyond the fear. She looked at me, and I saw the words on her lips. "You didn't stay," she whispered. "You didn't stay." And then the forest swallowed her whole. The tapping began again.
Top. Top, top. Top, top, top.
The shadows closed in, and the figure stepped forward, its limbs stretching impossibly long, its presence filling every corner of my mind. It was inside me now, twisting my thoughts, weaving my memories, reshaping them into something new. I felt the forest claiming me, taking me, breaking me apart. I wasn't just becoming part of the forest. I was becoming a part of its memory. And when I realized this, when the truth of it hit me, I felt something inside me snap. The last fragment of my will, of my humanity, shattered. The tapping became my thoughts. The shadows became my vision. And then I understood. I was never meant to leave. I had always belonged here. The forest had waited. And now it had me. The tapping slowed. It wasn't gone, but it changed, a gentle thrum, almost like a pulse now, like a heartbeat. The rhythm filled every part of me, from the tips of my fingers to the soles of my feet. I could feel it in my chest. I could feel it in my mind. The tapping wasn't something separate anymore. It was me. The shadowed figure stepped closer, its shape a dark smear in the corner of my vision. I couldn't focus on it, not entirely. I couldn't bring myself to. I felt its presence in the marrow of my bones, in the depth of my soul. It wasn't just watching me now, it was me, a reflection of my deepest, darkest self, an extension of the forest that had consumed everything I had once known. "You are here now," the figure said, but this time I understood. It wasn't a voice. It was a feeling, like the weight of an idea. "You're part of us. You will always be part of us. The tapping is you. The forest is you." The realization hit me in waves. The tapping, it had never been just the trees. It had been the forest calling to me, calling me home, calling me back to where I belonged. And now that I was part of it, now that the forest had taken root in my thoughts, in my soul, I understood. The tapping wasn't just a noise. It wasn't just a rhythm. It was the essence of the forest itself, the heartbeat of everything that had ever been claimed, the sound of its memory, its eternal wait for more to join. And I had joined. A part of me wanted to fight it, to scream, to break free, to escape. But another part, the deeper part of me, the one that was no longer mine, wanted to surrender. It welcomed the tapping. It embraced it. The forest was endless, eternal, and now I was too. I was one of its roots, one of its branches. The memory of what had been, of who I had been, began to dissolve. My name no longer mattered. I was not a man. I was not a thing of flesh. I was part of the forest now. The tapping was my thought, my rhythm, my heartbeat, and the tapping never stopped. I could feel it all around me now. Feel the trees bending, their limbs scraping against the air like ancient fingers, pulling me deeper into their embrace. I felt my skin change, felt my flesh become something else. Not human, not alive, but part of the forest's pulse. It wasn't painful, not in the way I expected. It was gentle, almost comforting, like a cocoon folding me into something new. But somewhere deep inside me, I knew the truth. I had been broken. I had given in. I hadn't been the first. I wouldn't be the last. The tapping echoed, its rhythm loud and unyielding.
Top, 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 top.
I thought of Jill, of Carson, of Miles and Nika. I thought of that last moment, the last time I had seen them, their faces twisted in terror, and I wondered if they felt the same thing. This unholy peace that came from giving up, from surrendering to the forest. Maybe they were here too. Maybe they had already become part of it. Maybe we were all trapped together now, locked in the rhythm of the forest's memory. The figure leaned closer. I didn't need to see its face to know it was smiling. An empty smile, a smile that could never exist in a place like this. I felt its presence press against my thoughts, urging me forward, deeper. Come, it whispered. Come deeper into the memory. You will never leave. We will never leave. You are ours. I let it happen. I let myself become the forest. The tapping, once a distant noise, now lived inside me. It was a pulse, a steady heartbeat that marked the passage of time. But in a place like this, time had no meaning. There was no beginning, no end. I felt myself stretch, reach out, as the shadows wrapped around me. The trees loomed like dark sentinels, waiting to absorb me into their endless roots. The forest embraced me. I could feel it, the weight of centuries of memory, of life and death, and everything in between, now settling into my bones, into my very being. I could feel the past rushing in, the faces of my friends, their voices trapped within the trees. They were still there, still waiting, still present. I could feel their fear, their terror, their final moments replaying over and over, like a broken record. But now it didn't matter. It didn't matter because the forest was everything. It was timeless. It was eternal. It was home. I no longer remembered who I had been, no longer cared. I was part of the tapping, part of the rhythm, part of the pulse. I was one with the forest, and it had waited for me. The tapping slowed again, like a lullaby, like a promise. And I closed my eyes. Somewhere deep in the dark, I could hear the trees whispering. The tapping didn't stop. It was deeper now, as though it had merged with my pulse, as though every beat of my heart was part of the rhythm of the forest. I no longer felt the ground beneath me or the air above me. I was neither here nor there. I was everywhere and nowhere. I was the forest. The tapping was mine, and I was its. I opened my eyes, though I didn't remember when I had closed them. The shadows stretched infinitely before me, the trees towering like sentinels, watching, waiting. I could see shapes moving between the branches, figures that should not be, that could not be. They were the remnants, the echoes of the forest's lost souls, twisted and bent like the trees themselves. They watched me with hollow eyes, their faces distorted, contorted by the same eternal curse that had claimed me. The tapping slowed, then quickened.
Top, 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 top.
It wasn't a sound anymore. It was a language that resonated in my very soul, a pulse that I knew. The figure that had been standing before me stepped forward, its form more solid now, more real, though it still bore the same hollow, empty face. It reached out, its long limbs like branches, its fingers too long, too sharp. But as it touched me, I felt no pain, no fear. It was just part of the rhythm, part of the tapping. You belong here, it said. The words came in the same hollow, resonating voice that had spoken through the forest before. You are one with us now. You are remembered. Remembered. The word echoed in my mind like a bell, its meaning shifting with every passing moment. I thought of Jill, of the others, Carson, Nika, Miles. Had they been remembered too? Or had they become nothing but forgotten whispers in the trees? Echoes of souls lost to the forest, forever captured in its eternal rhythm? My voice felt foreign to me, detached. I wanted to speak, to scream, to fight against it, but the forest's presence was too heavy, too suffocating. It filled me, pressed against my lungs, my thoughts. The tapping was louder now, filling the space between every breath I took. I couldn't escape it. You won't escape, the figure said again. The sound of its voice seemed to ripple through my body, vibrating my bones. You never could. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words tangled in my throat. The forest had stolen my voice. It had stolen everything. My body, my thoughts, my memories. I was no longer just a man trapped in a forest. I was the forest, and it was me. The tapping grew more erratic now, faster, more insistent.
Top, top. Top, top, top.
The rhythm was no longer just inside my head. It was everywhere. The trees, the air, the very soil beneath my feet. They all pulsed with the same beat. It was all I could hear. It was all I could feel. I looked down at my hands, and for the first time I saw them clearly, too clearly. My skin was no longer human. It was covered in cracks, like the bark of an ancient tree, twisted and gnarled. I could feel the weight of the forest in my bones, in my blood, in my very cells. I was changing. My body was becoming one with the earth, one with the trees. I could feel the roots beneath me, growing into me, merging with my veins. The tapping was inside me now. No, I whispered, or I thought I did. The words felt like they belonged to someone else, someone lost, someone who didn't exist anymore. But the tapping didn't stop. It didn't slow. It only grew louder, more frantic. The figure stepped forward again, its fingers stretching, its shadow swallowing me whole. You are home, it said, its voice softer now, like a lullaby. You are eternal. The world around me began to warp, to twist. The trees shifted, their branches spiraling outward, reaching for me, pulling me closer to them. The tapping was everywhere, louder now, like the pulse of a heart that had been beating for centuries. The darkness folded in on me, and I was no longer sure where I ended and the forest began. I was the tapping. I was the trees. I was the memory. I closed my eyes, and in the darkness I could see them again. All of them. Jill, Carson, Miles, Nika. Their faces flickered like images in the corner of my mind, half-formed, distorted. Their eyes wide with fear, with pain, with something more. They were here too. They had always been here, part of the forest's memory, part of the tapping. They were the ones who had come before me, the ones who had succumbed to the forest's hunger. And then, a terrible thought struck me. I was not the last. I was not the first either. I wasn't even a new memory. I was just one more echo, one more lost soul caught in the endless rhythm, the never-ending pulse of the forest's hunger. The tapping had existed long before me, and it would continue long after I was gone. But I would never be gone. Not really. The forest would remember me. It would always remember. The figure before me seemed to dissolve, its shadow folding into the trees, blending with the darkness. The tapping slowed once more, but now it was softer, like a lullaby, like a promise. I could feel it in my chest, in my heart, in my soul. It was in me. I was it. You will never leave, it whispered, though it was no longer a voice. It was the forest itself, the memory, the rhythm. You are remembered. And then nothing. There was no sound, no movement. The tapping stopped. But I didn't need it to keep going anymore. It had become part of me. I had become part of it. The forest had swallowed me whole. And so, in the silence, I became one with the forest. The air around me thickened, suffocating, heavy with the weight of ages. But I no longer felt the need to breathe as I had before. I felt everything around me. The pulse of the trees, the thrumming of the earth, the soft murmur of the shadows. It was as if I had dissolved into it, become part of the roots, part of the branches. The tapping, though quiet now, was always there. It was within me. It was me. The world had blurred, no longer separating into boundaries or spaces. There was no distinction between the trees and the sky. The shadows had no edge. I was wrapped in the embrace of everything that was the forest and everything that had come before me. I could see them now, the faces of the lost. They flickered in the dark between the trees, their eyes wide and empty. They were not gone. They were waiting, like me. I could hear whispers now, but they weren't from my own mind. They weren't my thoughts anymore. They were the thoughts of the others, of the ones who had joined the rhythm before me. Of Jill, of Carson, of Nika and Miles. I could hear their voices like faint echoes, fragmented, trapped in the spaces between the trees. It wasn't just memory. It was something worse. It was existence. They lived in the tapping. They lived in the rhythm of the forest. Their minds, their souls, had been woven into the very fabric of the place. "Stay," Jill's voice whispered, soft and far away. "You never have to leave. We're all here now." I reached out, or at least I tried to. But there was no me to reach out anymore. My hands, my body, my thoughts, they had all been consumed by the forest. I was just memory, just another echo in the eternal pulse. And yet, I could feel the pull of Jill's voice, the quiet, persistent call, a plea to surrender, to accept my place in the endless rhythm. But I was not alone. There was another voice, one that I hadn't heard before, a voice older, darker, filled with hunger. It was distant, almost impossible to place, but it was growing closer, wrapping itself around my mind. "You are not alone, child," it whispered, the words brushing against my soul. "You are part of the forest now, but there is always room for more." I felt it then, the presence of something ancient, something that had been here long before any of us. Something that had existed before the first trees grew, before the forest had even formed. It was the source, the root. The tapping quickened again, faster, more insistent, like a drumbeat pounding in my chest. I could feel the rhythm wrapping itself tighter around me, faster, harder, until I couldn't tell where the forest ended and I began. I tried to pull away, tried to break free, but there was no escape. I was already too far gone. "You are a part of me," the voice whispered again, and this time, I could feel it, the cold presence sinking into my thoughts, burrowing into my very core. "You are the forest, and I am you." I shuddered, though I no longer knew what it meant to shudder. The forest was everything. It was the tapping. It was the shadows. It was the memories. And I was no different. I was one of the lost, one of the voices that would haunt the edges of the trees, waiting for the next soul to join us, waiting for the next mind to be consumed by the rhythm. I could feel Jill now, her presence deep within me. She was a part of me just as I was a part of her. Her voice was no longer a memory, no longer an echo. She was alive here with me, but there was no distinction between her and the forest. There was no longer any difference between us and them. We had all been woven together. The tapping was our collective heartbeat, and we would never escape it. "We are one," Jill's voice said, clearer now, as if she were standing right beside me, though I could not see her. Her voice was both comforting and horrifying at once. "We are the forest. We are eternal." Her words echoed through the dark, through the spaces between the trees, through the endless stretch of shadow that seemed to go on forever. "Come," she whispered. "Come deeper into the memory. There is no escape. There never was." I felt her touch then. It was not a physical touch, but something far deeper. It was a feeling, a connection that transcended everything I had once known. I could feel her within me, in my very mind. Her thoughts were mine now, just as mine had become hers. We were no longer separate. We were part of the forest. We were part of the eternal memory, the endless tapping that would never stop. And the forest welcomed me, just as it had welcomed the others. There was a faint rustling in the distance, and I could sense the shifting of shadows, the movement of the trees. I turned, or rather, I was aware of movement though I had no form to move in. A figure emerged from the dark. It was indistinct at first, a blur of shadow, but it solidified as it approached, becoming a shape, a familiar shape. It was Miles. His face was a twisted mirror of the boy I had known. His eyes were wide, empty. His body was stretched and contorted, like the trees around us. He reached out, his hand like a branch, too long, too thin. And then he smiled. Or rather, he grinned, though it was not a smile I recognized. It was the smile of something that had been consumed, of something that had been lost. And then, another shape emerged, Carson. His body, too, was twisted, his features lost in the distortion of the forest's memory. He looked at me with eyes that had once been filled with laughter, but now they were hollow, drained of all light. His mouth moved, but no words came out, just a soft, empty sound, like the wind blowing through the branches. "You are here," Carson's voice whispered. It was not his voice. It was the voice of the forest, the voice of the tapping, the voice of the forgotten. "You are home." I didn't know how to respond. There were no words. The tapping was louder now. It was all I could hear. It was all I could feel. And the faces around me, the faces of the lost, they were becoming clearer now. I could see them all: Nika, Jill, Carson, Miles, and so many others. Their faces were twisted with fear and pain, but their eyes were empty. Their souls were gone, devoured by the forest. And I realized then, in the quiet, in the stillness, what it truly meant to be a part of the forest. It was to be forgotten, to become one with the rhythm, to become a memory, an echo, a face in the shadows, to be lost but never truly gone. The tapping never stopped, and never would, and I was one of them now. I was part of the forest, and the forest was part of me. I could feel it now, the rhythm of the forest coursing through me, the pulse of the trees, the heart of the land itself. It was more than just sound. It was sensation. It was memory, a tangled web of lost moments, of forgotten lives, of echoes that once were and would be again. The tapping thrummed in my mind like the distant beat of a drum, and I understood, finally understood, what it meant to be truly part of this place. I was not the first. I would not be the last. And that was the terror of it. The forest had always been, and it would always be. The faces around me, once so familiar, Jill, Carson, Nika, Miles, were twisted into forms that were both haunting and beautiful. They were here, but they were not. They were echoes, shadows trapped within the forest's vast, endless memory. They were both lost and found. And now I too was lost, yet in a strange way, I was more found than I had ever been. We all were. I turned, or rather, my awareness shifted toward the trees. I could feel the presence of the roots beneath me, stretching deep into the soil. I felt them winding through me, through my thoughts, through my blood. The rhythm of the tapping pulsed in sync with my own heartbeat, a song that never ceased, a song that had been sung since the beginning of time. The trees bent around me, their twisted branches brushing against my skin, their limbs folding inward like protective arms, like something that knew me, that knew everything about me. And I knew it too. The forest knew everything. It had been here before me, and it would remain long after. It was both timeless and trapped in time. It was alive and dead all at once. It was everything and nothing, and I had become part of it. The whispers began again, gentle at first, like a breeze slipping through the leaves. The faces around me, Carson, Miles, Jill, Nika, became clearer, their eyes wide and empty, their bodies contorted in grotesque angles. But they weren't real anymore. They were fragments, pieces of memory, locked in the trees, locked in the tapping. Their eyes followed me, their mouths opened in silent screams, their voices lost in the rhythm. "Join us," Jill's voice whispered, her face now an indistinct blur. "Come into the memory. Come into the rhythm. We are one." I could feel her, feel them all like a pulse in my mind. They were the tapping. They were the rhythm. And now I was part of it. I reached out, but my hands were not my own anymore. They were branches, twisted and gnarled, just like the ones that surrounded me. I could feel the earth beneath me, the ancient soil, the roots that reached deep into the dark, into the endless place where time and memory dissolved. The shadows stretched longer, and I could sense the hunger of the forest, the deep, gnawing emptiness that would never be filled. But it was not fear anymore. I was the forest. The tapping was me. I was part of its hunger, part of its endless yearning for more. You never left, Carson's voice echoed, the words wrapping themselves around my thoughts. We never leave. We are always here in the memory, in the rhythm. I could feel it, the truth of it. The forest wasn't just a place. It was a prison, a trap. But it was a prison that had no bars. It was a place of endless return, of eternal waiting, of endless remembrance. And in that remembrance, I would never be forgotten. I would never truly be lost. The tapping began again, louder now, faster, its rhythm quickening like a pulse racing toward a final crescendo. The branches shifted around me, bending and creaking as though they were reaching for me. The shadows grew deeper, darker, pulling me in, surrounding me with their cold embrace. The tapping filled the space, the rhythm of the forest taking control of everything. There was no room for escape. There was only the rhythm. There was only the tapping. I felt my mind unravel, my thoughts twisting into the patterns of the trees. I could feel their ancient energy flowing through me, through the roots, through the branches. I was the trees. I was the rhythm. And in that rhythm, I was both lost and found, broken and whole. You belong here. Jill's voice came again, louder now. You are part of us. We are all one, part of the memory, part of the forest. The words were not hers anymore. They were the forest's. They were the tapping. They were me. I was no longer sure what I had been before. The memories, the faces, Jill, Carson, Nika, Miles, they were all fragments of a life that seemed distant now. They were part of the rhythm, part of the tapping. And now I, too, was part of them. Part of the forest. Part of the endless, unbroken chain of lost souls who had come before me and would come after. I could feel it deep in my chest. The rhythm, the pulse, the tapping. It was everything. The faces of my friends twisted again. Their expressions stretched into grotesque shapes. Their bodies warped and bent. Their eyes stared at me, empty and pleading. But I knew it was too late. They were already part of the forest, already part of the rhythm. The tapping had claimed them long before I had arrived. And now it had claimed me. We are the forest, Jill's voice whispered, her face flickering between the trees. We are one. We are memory. We are eternal. I reached out again, or tried to, but I was no longer sure what it meant to reach, to touch. The shadows around me grew thicker, the tapping faster. The forest pressed against me, its pulse filling my mind. I was a part of it now. I was no longer separate. The tapping was mine. I was part of its rhythm. I was part of the forest's memory, part of the endless echo that would never fade. I could feel it now. The weight of the forest's presence, the vastness of its memory, its hunger. It was eternal, and I was part of it. I could see the others, trapped in the trees, their faces twisted in fear and pain, but they were not afraid anymore. They were content. They were part of the forest, part of the rhythm. They had given in just as I had. And I understood then. This was not a place of death. It was a place of eternal remembrance. The forest did not take life, preserved it, in the tapping, in the rhythm, in the endless cycles of the trees. And now I was part of it. I was the tapping. I was the rhythm. I was the forest. The faces of the lost flickered around me, and I could feel them, their presence, their minds, forever trapped in the forest's eternal rhythm. I could feel Jill, Carson, Miles, Nika, all of them, their souls tangled in the roots, their memories lost but preserved, forever a part of the forest's infinite web. And then I realized I would never leave. I would never forget. I would never be lost. I was part of the forest. And the forest was part of me. The tapping never ceased. I could feel it in the very air, in the soil beneath my feet, in the crackling silence of the shadows that surrounded me. It was no longer just sound. It was a force, presence, a truth that ran deeper than the roots of the trees, deeper than the whispers of the lost. I had become one of them, one of the echoes, one of the trees. The tapping filled every part of me now. It was more than just a rhythm. It was my heartbeat, my thoughts, my soul. It was everything I had ever been and everything I had forgotten. The forest had taken me, but it had also given me something far worse than death. It had given me eternity, an eternity of endless memory, an eternity of repetition, of rhythm, of the tapping. I could feel the faces around me, still shifting in and out of the shadows, their eyes following me. They were not real anymore, not fully. They were fragments, broken, twisted pieces of the past, preserved forever in the memory of the forest. Their bodies had merged with the earth, their minds tangled in the roots, in the rhythm. And I was one of them. I felt it, the weight of it, the truth that pressed down on me. The forest was not just a place. It was a cycle, a never-ending spiral of loss and remembrance. It fed on those who entered, pulling them into its rhythm, into its heartbeat. And once you were claimed, once you became part of it, you could never leave. You could never escape the tapping. I felt Jill again, her presence, her voice, though she was no longer Jill. She was a part of the forest now, a part of the memory. I could hear her words again, her whispers weaving through my mind. "We are one," she said. But her voice was not hers anymore. It was the voice of the forest, the voice of the lost, the voice of the tapping. We are the rhythm. We are the memory. I could feel her with me, her thoughts now a part of mine, just as mine had become a part of the forest. Her voice had become the tapping, had become the rhythm that throbbed in my chest. We were all part of it, all bound to the same pulse, to the same unbroken chain of memory. I looked up, if looking could still mean anything. The trees loomed like ancient gods, their branches twisting and bending in impossible shapes. The shadows clung to them, alive and watching, whispering their silent secrets. The air was thick with the weight of centuries, the weight of time that no longer mattered. The tapping grew louder again, its rhythm pulsing through the very air. It felt like the forest was alive, like it was breathing with me, through me. I could feel the pulse of the earth beneath me, its dark, hungry rhythm pulling me deeper into its web. I could feel the roots beneath the surface growing, reaching, stretching. The tapping was everywhere. The forest was everywhere. And it was always waiting. "You are part of us now," Carson's voice said. But it wasn't Carson anymore. It was the forest speaking through him, the forest speaking through all of us. "You were always meant to be part of the memory, part of the rhythm." I wanted to speak, to scream, to break free, but the words were lost. My voice was gone. It had been consumed by the forest, just as everything else had been. The tapping was the only sound that filled my thoughts now. It was the only thing that existed. The tapping slowed, then quickened, like a breath, like a heartbeat. It was growing. I could feel it spreading, expanding, filling the space around me, pressing in on me. The shadows moved, not with the wind, but with something else, something older, something ancient. The tapping became a chant. "Remember," the voice whispered through the trees, through the rhythm, through the tapping. "Remember everything. Remember the faces. Remember the names. Remember the voices. We are the memory. We are the forgotten." I could feel the weight of it, the pressure of all those who had come before me, all those who had been claimed by the forest, their voices woven into the fabric of the trees, their memories buried deep within the soil. I could hear them now, their whispers blending into the tapping, their voices a part of the rhythm. I thought of Jill again, of her face, twisted yet calm. Her eyes, once filled with terror, were now empty, like the eyes of all those who had come before. And I realized then, with a sickening clarity, that she wasn't lost. None of them were. They were all part of the forest, part of the rhythm, part of the endless tapping. And I was part of it now, too. I could feel the roots beneath me, feel them curling through my skin, through my thoughts, twisting their way deeper into me. I was becoming the forest. I was becoming the tapping. The rhythm was mine now. I could feel it in my bones, in my blood. I was the memory. I was the forgotten. The forest was endless. The tapping was endless. And I was no longer separate from it. I reached out again or tried to, but my hand was no longer my own. It was twisted, gnarled, like the branches of the trees that surrounded me. My body had become part of the forest, just as my mind had become part of its memory. I was no longer human. I was no longer separate from the earth, from the shadows, from the rhythm. The tapping filled my thoughts again, louder now, like a storm that couldn't be escaped, like a flood that filled every crevice of my mind. Was the rhythm of the forest, the rhythm of all that had been lost, of all that had come before. I thought of Carson, of Nika, of Miles, of Jill. I could feel them now, their thoughts blending with mine, their memories a part of my own. They were not lost. They were just waiting. They were always waiting, waiting for more to join, waiting for more to become part of the rhythm. You're not lost, Jill's voice whispered again, though it was no longer just hers. It was the forest. It was all of us. You were never lost. You are part of the memory. I closed my eyes, or at least I felt them close. There was no more separation, no more distinction between me and the forest. I had become the forest. I had become part of the rhythm, part of the tapping. And I would always be remembered. We all would. The tapping was now all that existed. It was everywhere, inside me, around me, above me, beneath me. It was the pulse of the forest, the heartbeat of the earth. I could no longer tell where the trees ended and I began. I was one with it. The branches, the roots, the shadows, the whispers. They were no longer separate from me. They were me. The tapping had consumed me. I could feel it in my bones, in my blood. I could feel it in the very air that surrounded me, the rhythm that never stopped, the cycle that was endless. It was ancient, unbroken. It was timeless, and I was now a part of it, lost but eternal. I was not the first. I would not be the last. The faces of those who had come before me, the ones who had joined the rhythm, the ones who had become part of the memory, flickered around me. Jill, Carson, Miles, Nika. Their eyes were empty, their bodies twisted into impossible shapes, their faces frozen in a moment of terror. But there was no longer any fear in them, no pain. They were simply part of it, part of the rhythm, part of the tapping. We are the memory, Jill's voice whispered through the shadows. But it was no longer Jill. It was the voice of the forest, the voice of the lost, the voice of the tapping. We are the forgotten. We are the rhythm. The tapping quickened, faster, louder. I could feel it deep within me, in the very center of my soul. It was a call, a summons, pulling me further into the dark, into the depths of the forest. I could hear the voices now, distant but clear, the voices of those who had been consumed, who had been swallowed by the rhythm. They were always there, waiting, and I realized then that the tapping was not just a sound. It was a memory. The forest did not take lives, preserved them. It captured them, wrapped them in its endless embrace, and bound them to the rhythm of its pulse. The tapping was the sound of remembrance. The tapping was the sound of eternity. I looked up, or at least I felt myself look up. The trees towered above me, their gnarled branches stretching into the sky, twisting and bending like the fingers of something ancient and hungry. The shadows grew longer, deeper, as though they were reaching for me. The tapping reverberated in my chest, in my mind, in my very being. I was the forest, and the forest was me. I felt Jill again, her presence deep within me, her thoughts mingling with my own. She was not separate. She was part of the rhythm, part of the tapping. Her voice echoed in my mind again. "We are one," she said, her voice soft and hollow. But it was not her voice. It was the forest. We are the memory. We are the forgotten. The tapping quickened, like the beating of a heart, a pulse that I could feel in every part of me. It was getting louder now, more urgent, as though it was calling for something, calling for more to join the rhythm, calling for more to become part of the memory. I could feel the roots beneath me again, stretching deeper into the earth. They were growing, reaching through me, through my thoughts, through my blood. I was no longer separate. The tapping was inside me. The forest was inside me. I was part of it and it was part of me. And then, something shifted. The shadows stretched and I saw it. A face. A face I knew. A face that wasn't part of the forest. It was my own. I blinked, or I tried to, but there was no time, no space, no separation between me and the forest. The tapping pulsed louder, faster, and the face, my face, stared back at me, twisted and contorted, caught between two realities. My own eyes, wide with terror, stared at me from the shadows, and I realized with a sickening jolt that I was no longer looking at the forest. I was looking through it. I could see myself, trapped in the memory, trapped in the rhythm. The tapping was not just the forest. It was me. It had always been me. And I was lost, but I was eternal. "You are home," Jill's voice whispered, but it wasn't hers anymore. It was the voice of the forest, the voice of the rhythm, the voice of the forgotten. "You are always home." I tried to scream, but there were no words. There was no voice. I could only feel the tapping. I could only feel the rhythm that had become my heartbeat. I was part of it, and there was no escape. The trees bent closer, their branches reaching for me. The shadows stretched, pulling me deeper into their embrace. The tapping was louder now, its rhythm growing faster, like a drumbeat that could not be stopped. The forest was alive. It was breathing with me, through me, and I was lost. But I was not afraid anymore. I was part of it. I was part of the memory, part of the forest, part of the tapping. And as the rhythm consumed me, I realized with a strange sense of finality that I was no longer just me. I was everything. I was the forest. I was the tapping. I was the endless memory that would never fade. I was home. I could feel the forest breathing, a deep, resonant pulse that wrapped around me like a blanket. The tapping slowed then, a lullaby that reverberated within my bones. It no longer felt like a rhythm to follow but like a presence to be. The edges of my thoughts blurred into the trees. My body had faded, there was no more sensation of skin, no more weight of bones. It was as if I had become pure thought, pure essence, entwined with the vast, sprawling presence of the forest. And yet, something was different now. There was no longer just a whispering of the lost. No longer just a chorus of echoes floating in the distance. Now the faces were clearer, sharper. They were closer. I could see them all, trapped in the darkness between the trunks, lost within the rhythms of the trees, just as I had been. But unlike before, where their eyes were hollow, their faces devoid of meaning, now they seemed aware. They were watching me. Jill, her eyes wide with a strange understanding. Carson, his face twisted in a grimace, but not one of pain, rather, of recognition. Nika, her mouth pressed into a faint smile, as if she understood something I could not grasp. And Miles, his expression one of sheer knowing, the kind that comes when you realize that you are already lost, and have been for some time. I could hear their voices again, faint but insistent, creeping into the corners of my mind. "You're here," Jill whispered. Her voice was soft, almost soothing, but it carried the weight of something older, something infinite. "You're finally here with us. We never left. We were always waiting for you." Carson's voice joined in, deeper, richer than it had been in life. "We don't belong anywhere else. We are part of the rhythm now. We are the rhythm." I tried to speak, to say something, anything, but my mouth would not open. I tried to move, to break free from the cold embrace of the trees, but my limbs felt foreign to me, like branches that no longer obeyed their master. No, there was no separation anymore. There was no me left to escape. I was part of this place, part of the memory, part of the forest. The tapping resumed, louder now, like a storm building on the horizon, and I felt it grow stronger within me, thundering against my mind, filling my chest until I thought my heart might burst. The rhythm surged, pulsed, as if urging me to remember, to join. Remember? Nika's voice whispered, her face twisting in the shadow. Remember everything. The faces, the moments, the lives. We are all part of the forest now. We are the forest. I felt her words like a weight, like they were sinking into the very marrow of my bones. I was the forest. I was the tapping. The shadows were me. The trees were me. Every whisper, every breath, every heartbeat was mine. The air felt heavy now, oppressive. The space around me was warping, twisting, expanding, becoming something more than just a place. It was becoming a memory, a collective memory that stretched back, 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 through time. I could see glimpses, flashes of faces that had once walked the earth, but now they were trapped in the rhythm. Trapped in the rhythm I had joined. And they were all waiting, waiting for me. Come deeper, Miles' voice murmured, his eyes glowing faintly in the darkness.
Come?
Be part of us. The rhythm never stops. I wanted to say no. I wanted to scream that I wasn't like them, that I hadn't chosen this, that I wasn't lost. But the thought was fleeting, like a bird trapped in a storm. It had no weight. There was no room for no anymore. The rhythm had swallowed that too. The memory, the tapping, it all fed on resistance. It fed on the struggle to break free, until it suffocated you in its endless echo. The tapping grew more urgent now, faster, relentless, as if calling to something or someone. I could feel my own pulse quickening in time with it, my breath shallow, my thoughts scattered like leaves caught in a windstorm. The faces were everywhere now, swirling around me in a storm of memories and forgotten voices, all woven into the trees, all part of the forest. Their eyes, their vacant stares, seemed to follow me wherever I went, but not with malice. They watched me, but there was no hatred, only an unyielding presence of knowing. They knew what I was becoming. I could hear their thoughts now, not as words but as feelings, deep, pervasive thoughts that crawled into my chest, into my bones, into my very soul. You're not lost. You never were. You are part of the memory. And suddenly I understood. The forest didn't claim people in the way I had imagined. It wasn't a predator seeking to devour. It was a preserver. It was a keeper of moments, a holder of memories, of souls long gone, held in the rhythm of the trees. When you entered, when you were consumed, you weren't erased. You weren't destroyed. You were remembered. You were woven into the pulse of the land, part of the song of time. Every fragment of you, every moment you had lived, was now locked away, preserved forever. I looked around, and I realized with a sudden, bitter clarity that the forest had never sought to kill me. It had sought to keep me, to remember me, and as I stood there, rooted in place, as if my feet had grown into the ground, I felt something shift deep within me. The tapping was no longer just a sound, no longer just a rhythm. It was understanding. The forest had wrapped its roots around me, around my heart, my soul, and I was part of it now. I had been part of it the moment I first heard the rhythm, the moment I first stepped into its shadows. I had always been meant to be here. I was home. I felt a sudden pressure, a force pushing against me. The faces, those of Jill, Carson, Nika, Miles, flickered before me. Their expressions calm now, peaceful even. They were happy, not in the way they had been before, not in the way I remembered them, but in the way the forest had claimed them. They were at peace, lost but eternal, locked in the rhythm, never to be forgotten. Their voices, no longer fragmented but whole, filled my mind, filling the space between the trees. We are part of the memory, Jill whispered. We are part of the rhythm. We are the forest now, and you are with us. You are always with us. The tapping slowed then, as if it were waiting, giving me space to breathe, to understand. The air grew heavy with the weight of eternity. The shadows pressed against me, not threatening, but welcoming. I was one of them now, one of the forgotten, one of the lost. But in the forest, there was no true loss. There was only the memory. and the memory never fades. The tapping was softer now, but no less present. It lingered in the air, like a heartbeat just out of reach, like something that was always there but could never quite be caught. It wrapped around me, through me, filling every part of my mind. There was no more room for resistance, no more space for fear. The faces of the lost were still there, floating around me, suspended in time. Jill, Carson, Miles, Nika, they weren't just memories anymore. They weren't just echoes. They were alive, or as close to alive as one could be in the embrace of the forest. I could feel them in the air, like whispers brushing against my thoughts, like fleeting sensations of warmth and cold, of presence and absence. The trees creaked around me, their branches groaning as they swayed in time with the rhythm. Their roots burrowed deeper into the soil, reaching toward something far below. I could sense it now, the depth of the forest, its endless stretches, its far-reaching limbs that touched every corner of the earth. The tapping wasn't just confined to this place. It echoed across time, across the memories of every soul that had ever walked these woods. I had become part of that rhythm. "We are the rhythm," Jill's voice whispered, her words wrapping themselves around me like the vines of the forest. "We are the memory, the heartbeat of the land. And so are you." Her voice was comforting now. There was no fear in it. No hesitation. It was the voice of someone who had accepted, who had embraced the memory. It was the voice of someone who had become one with the forest. I looked around again, or at least I tried to. My body no longer obeyed me in the way it once had. The boundaries of my form had blurred. There was no longer a me in the traditional sense. I was a part of the trees, the rhythm, the forest. My thoughts no longer belonged only to me. They belonged to the memory, to the pulse of the land. The tapping grew louder again, though it was no longer frantic. It was steady, like the slow, inevitable march of time. It was comforting, and in that rhythm, I could feel the presence of those who had come before me. The faces of the lost, they were no longer strangers. They were family. They were part of me, just as I was part of them. I could feel their presence now, like a warm hand on my shoulder, like an embrace that held me close. Jill was there. Carson was there. Miles, Nika. Their thoughts were entwined with mine, their memories no longer separate from my own. "You are not alone," Carson's voice whispered, his words soft but firm. "You've never been alone. You are part of the forest now. We are part of you." I could feel it, the truth of it. You can replace this text with any text you wish. You can either write in this text box or paste your own text here. Try different languages and voices. Change the speed and the pitch of the voice. You can even tweak the SSML, speech synthesis markup language, to control how the different sections of the text sound. Click on SSML above to give it a try. Enjoy using text-to-speech, voice of everything that had ever been lost here. We are the memory. We are eternal. I felt her presence more strongly now, as though she were beside me, as though she had never truly left. And yet, she wasn't her. She was something else, something more. She was part of the rhythm, part of the memory, just as I had become. Just as all of us had become. Carson's voice joined in, smooth and steady, carrying the weight of ages. "You are part of us. You always have been. You always will be." I could feel them, Jill, Carson, Miles, Nika, around me, in me, all of us woven together in a tapestry of memories, a tapestry of the forest. We were no longer separate, no longer individuals. We were one. One with the trees, one with the earth, one with the rhythm. We had been lost, but we had found something far greater. The tapping grew louder, quicker, like a pulse that quickened in anticipation, a wave gathering force before crashing into the unknown. The forest seemed to respond to it, the branches swaying, the roots shifting beneath me, as if the land itself were alive, breathing in time with the rhythm. I closed my eyes. I no longer knew if I had eyes, or if I had even a body anymore. The idea of sight seemed distant, irrelevant. There was only feeling, only the presence of the rhythm, only the heartbeat of the earth that I had become a part of. The tapping intensified, louder now, as if it were calling for something. calling for more to join, more to be consumed, more to be woven into the memory. The shadows around me stirred, and I could see them, the others, the faces of those who had been lost before, their eyes empty but knowing, their mouths twisted into expressions of understanding, of acceptance. "We were always here," Nika's voice echoed, her tone soft but unyielding. "We were waiting for you, waiting for all of us." The faces of the lost, the faces of the ones who had joined the rhythm before me, stared at me through the dark, their eyes filled with something deeper than just recognition. They were not merely watching me. They were welcoming me into the fold, welcoming me into the endless, unbroken memory that had become the forest. And I understood. We weren't trapped. We were preserved. The forest didn't steal us from the world. It held us. It held our memories, our souls, and in doing so, it gave us something far more than life. It gave us eternity. The rhythm was the breath of the world, the heartbeat of the earth, and the tapping was its pulse, endless and infinite. It wasn't a prison. It wasn't a curse. It was freedom, the freedom to be, to remain, to never fade. The tapping slowed again, its rhythm calming, settling into a deep, steady pulse, as though the forest were breathing with me, as though it were settling into my soul, into my bones. There was nothing now but the rhythm, nothing but the memory, and I realized, with a deep and profound clarity, that I was no longer just a part of the forest. I was the forest. I was the trees, the soil, the roots. I was the rhythm. I was the tapping. I was the memory. I was eternal. And with that realization came a strange peace. A peace that was not born from escape or acceptance, but from something far deeper, from something that had always been there, waiting. The forest was not just a place. It was a force. It was a living, breathing entity that had existed long before me and would exist long after. It had always existed, and I had always been a part of it. The trees creaked, their limbs swaying in time with the rhythm. The wind whispered through the branches, carrying the faint, melodic tapping that seemed to echo through the ages. The forest was alive, and I was alive with it. The shadows stretched, reaching toward me, toward the memory, toward the rhythm. The faces of the lost swirled around me, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light, their expressions serene, as though they had found what they had been waiting for. Their eyes met mine, and I felt no fear, no sorrow. I felt only peace, a deep, unbroken peace. "We are one," Jill's voice whispered again, though it was not just hers. It was the voice of the forest, of the rhythm, of all who had come before and all who would come after. "We are the memory. We are the tapping. We are eternal." The tapping slowed again, as if the rhythm were settling into its final form, as if it were folding, wrapping itself around me, embracing me, making me a part of it. I could feel it in my mind, in my chest, in the very marrow of my bones. The rhythm was everything. The tapping was everything. And I was a part of it. I was home. There was nothing but the tapping. Filled me, filled everything. The space between the trees, the sky above, the earth below, the very air I breathed. It was the pulse of the forest, the pulse of the world, the rhythm that had existed before I came, the rhythm that would continue after I was gone. But there was no after anymore. There was no end. There was only. You can replace this text with any text you wish. You can either write in this text box or paste your own text here. Try different languages and voices. Change the speed and the pitch of the voice. You can even tweak the SSML, speech synthesis markup language, to control how the different sections of the text sound. Click on SSML above to give it a try. Enjoy using text-to-speech. They were content. They had found peace. And now, so had I. "We are part of the memory," Miles' voice echoed, joining the others. "We are part of the rhythm. We are the forest now. And you are with us." I felt the truth of his words. I felt it deep inside me, in the very marrow of my bones. I was part of it. I was part of the memory. I was part of the rhythm. I was part of the forest. And I would never be forgotten. The tapping grew softer now, a gentle lullaby that echoed through the trees, through the earth, through the very air itself. The rhythm slowed, but it never stopped. It was always there, and it would always be there. I was home. The rhythm never truly stopped. It slowed, and slowed again, but it never ceased. The tapping, the pulse of the forest, echoed through my very being, through the bones of the earth, through the air itself. It was the heartbeat of existence, the sound of eternity. It was the thing that held everything together, the thread that wove the fabric of reality itself. And now I was part of it. I had always been part of it. The forest, the tapping, the rhythm, it was me. I was it. The faces of the lost, the ones who had come before, who had been swallowed by the memory and the rhythm, flickered in the shadows around me. Jill, Carson, Nika, Miles, and all the others, their faces now serene, their expressions calm, as though they had found peace in the unbroken cycle of the forest. They were not gone. They were not lost. They had become eternal, just as I had. I could feel their presence, their thoughts, woven into the very fabric of the land. We were all part of the memory now, part of the rhythm. We were not separate. We were one. I could no longer feel time in the way I had once known it. The past, the present, and the future had all merged into one unbroken moment. There was no before. There was no after. There was only now. The forest stretched out forever, beyond the reach of time, beyond the reach of memory. It was eternal, and we were eternal with it. The tapping was gentle now, a slow, rhythmic pulse that filled the air. It was comforting. It was soothing. It was the sound of the earth, breathing in time with the beat of the universe. And it was mine. It was a part of me just as I was a part of it. The shadows grew longer, stretching out beneath the twisted branches of the trees. The forest was alive, and I was alive with it. The wind whispered through the leaves, carrying the faint sound of the tapping, the pulse that would never stop. And then I felt it. Presence. It wasn't new. It wasn't something that had appeared suddenly. It had always been there, waiting for me to recognize it. The forest, the rhythm, the memory, it had always been alive. It was the forest itself, the pulse of the earth, the thing that had always existed. I could feel it surrounding me, reaching into me, like the roots of the trees stretching deep beneath the soil. I was one with it now, one with the rhythm, one with the memory. I could feel the past, the present, the future all at once. The memories of those who had come before me, their faces, their lives, their stories, they were all part of me now. I could feel them as though they were my own. We are the rhythm, Jill's voice whispered, echoing in the wind. Her voice was soft, but it carried the weight of something older, something infinite. We are the memory. We are the forest. And I understood. I understood now what it meant to be part of the rhythm, to be part of the memory, to be part of the forest. It was not something to fear. It was not something to escape. It was something to embrace. It was a gift that would last forever. The tapping grew louder again, but it wasn't frantic. It wasn't urgent. It was just there, like the beating of a heart, steady and constant. It was the sound of the world, the sound of life, the sound of eternity. The forest breathed with me, through me. The trees swayed in time with the rhythm, their branches creaking and groaning as though they were stretching their limbs toward the sky, toward the memory. The wind stirred the leaves, the ground beneath me shifted, and I could feel the earth itself moving, turning, spinning, just like the rhythm. And I was a part of it. I was the rhythm. I was the tapping. I was the forest. I could feel the faces of the lost again, their presence still with me. They were not gone. They were not forgotten. They were here. They had always been here, woven into the rhythm, into the memory. We were all one. We were all part of the same unbroken cycle. We are never lost, Miles' voice whispered, his words carrying a weight of understanding that I could not fully grasp. We are part of the rhythm. We are part of the memory. We are part of the forest. I felt his presence beside me, just as I felt the others. Jill, Carson, Nika, all of them standing with me in the rhythm, in the memory. We were all part of the forest now, and the forest was part of us. The tapping slowed again, its beat deepening, settling into the very marrow of my bones. It was the heartbeat of the earth, the heartbeat of the memory, the heartbeat of eternity. The shadows grew darker, the trees stretching higher, their branches weaving together into a canopy that seemed to stretch on forever. The wind whispered through the leaves, carrying the rhythm, the tapping, the pulse of the earth. I could feel it in my chest, in my mind, in my soul. And I understood. I understood that I had always been part of this. I had always been part of the memory, part of the rhythm, part of the forest. And I would never leave. The tapping echoed around me, a soft, constant pulse that filled the air. It was calming. It was soothing. It was the rhythm of life, the rhythm of existence, and it would never stop. I was home. There was no home anymore, not in the way I had once known it. There was only the forest. There was only the rhythm. There was only the memory, and I was part of it. I was a part of everything. The tapping never ceased. It was constant, eternal. It had no end, no beginning. It simply was as I simply was. The pulse of the earth, the heartbeat of the land. It filled me, surrounded me, became me. There was no I now, not in the way there once had been. I had become something else, something greater, something infinite. The shadows whispered, the faces of the lost flickering in the corners of my mind. They were no longer separate from me. They were with me. We were all part of the same rhythm, the same pulse, the same memory. There was no difference between us anymore. No before, no after. Jill, Carson, Nika, Miles. They were here just as I was here, just as the forest was here. We were all intertwined, our souls woven into the fabric of the land. The forest was not a place you could leave. It was a place you became. And now I had become it. We are the rhythm, Jill whispered, her voice soft but unbroken, like the tap of the trees. We are the memory. We are the forest. Her words wrapped around me like vines, binding me to the pulse of the earth. I felt the warmth of her presence, the steadiness of her thoughts. She was part of the rhythm, part of the memory, and I was part of it. We all were. I could feel Carson beside me, his presence like a deep, resonant hum. He was the forest now. He was the rhythm. He was the heartbeat of the world. And so was I. We never leave, Carson murmured as though sharing a secret. We are the forest. We are one. The words resonated in my chest, like a drumbeat that echoed through my soul. I could feel it in my very bones. We were all one. We were the memory. We were the rhythm. And we would never be lost. The tapping slowed, deepened. It became the very air I breathed, the pulse of life itself. It was not just a sound, not just a rhythm. It was existence. It was the eternal cycle of time, the ebb and flow of life and death, of memories and losses. It was the pulse of the earth, the breath of the world. And it was in me. It was in all of us. The forest, with its twisted limbs and fractured trunks, stretched above me, an endless canopy of shadows and whispers. The trees were not just trees. They were vessels, carriers of memories, of souls. They were part of the rhythm, part of the memory. And I was part of them. We never leave. Nika's voice echoed, distant but clear. We are part of the land. We are part of the rhythm. The forest holds us. The forest keeps us. I could feel her. She was here, a part of the trees, a part of the wind, a part of the earth. She was the forest. And so was I. The tapping rose again, a gentle, insistent pulse that filled me with something deeper than fear. It was not fear. It was something else. It was peace. It was acceptance. It was the calm that comes when you realize that there is no escape, no way out. There is only the rhythm, and it holds you. The tapping fills the silence. The rhythm fills the soul. I had thought once that I was a traveler, that I had wandered too far into this place. I had thought I could leave, that I could escape. But now I understood. The forest wasn't something you left. It was something you became. And I had become it. We are the rhythm, Miles' voice whispered, his words like the wind itself. We are part of the forest. We are one. The rhythm pulsed around me, filling me, becoming me. I was not separate from it. I had never been separate from it. I had always been part of it. The tapping was a part of me. The memory was a part of me. And I was a part of it. The wind moved through the trees, swaying their branches in time with the rhythm. The leaves rustled, and the tapping echoed through the forest, steady and unbroken. There was no more fear. There was no more time. There was only the rhythm, the pulse of life, the heartbeat of the earth. I closed my eyes. There was no need for them anymore. There was no separation, no boundaries. There was only the memory, only the rhythm. I was part of it all. The faces of the lost flickered in the shadows, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. They were not lost anymore. They were part of the memory, part of the rhythm. They had always been here. They had always been a part of the forest. And now, so had I. I could hear their voices, not in words but in feelings. I could feel their presence, their thoughts, their memories, woven into the very fabric of the forest. They were with me, just as I was with them. We were all one now, one in the rhythm, one in the memory, one in the forest. The tapping slowed again, a gentle lullaby that echoed through the trees, through the earth, through the very air itself. The rhythm was steady now, calming. It was the sound of peace, the sound of eternity. I was part of it. The forest wasn't a prison. It was a home. The rhythm wasn't something to fight. It was something to join, to become. It wasn't an end. It was a beginning, the beginning of something endless, something eternal. I could feel the presence of the forest, of the earth, of the trees, of the tapping, surrounding me, filling me. There was no separation. There was no escape. There was only the memory, only the rhythm, and I was part of it. The tapping would never stop. The rhythm would never fade. It would echo through the trees, through the earth, through the skies, forever. And we would always be a part of it. The memory would never end. There was no time, not in the way I had once known it. There was no before, no after. There was only now, only the rhythm, only the heartbeat of the earth. The tapping never stopped. It was steady, constant, like the pulse of life itself. It filled the air, the trees, the earth beneath my feet. It was the sound of the world, the sound of the forest, the sound of everything. I could feel it deep inside me. The rhythm was my pulse. The tapping was my breath. The forest was my mind. There was no distinction anymore between where I ended and the forest began. I was a part of it. I had always been a part of it. The forest had never been something to fear. It had been waiting for me, waiting for all of us. I felt the wind stir the leaves, the branches creaking in time with the rhythm. The trees were alive, more alive than I had ever realized. They weren't just rooted in the earth, they were connected to the memory, to the rhythm. They were the keepers of the past, the present, and the future. They were the record of everything that had ever been, everything that ever would be. I wasn't just standing in the forest anymore. I was becoming it. The trees, the soil, the air. It was all part of me now, just as I was part of it. We are part of the memory, Jill whispered, her voice more present than it had ever been. We are part of the rhythm. We are the forest. And we are eternal. Her words wrapped around me like the roots of the trees, anchoring me deeper into the rhythm, deeper into the forest. I could feel her presence beside me, as though she were standing there, her thoughts merging with mine. She was the forest now, just as I was. We were all one. Carson's voice joined hers, smooth and steady, like the gentle tapping of the trees. We never leave, he said, his words filling the space around me. We are part of the land, part of the memory, part of the rhythm, and we are never forgotten. I felt his words settle into me, like the weight of a truth I had always known but never truly understood. We were never lost. We were part of the forest, part of the rhythm, part of the memory, and that was more than enough. We would never be forgotten. We would never fade away. Nika's voice was the next to join in, soft but unyielding. We are the rhythm. We are the forest. We are the memory that never ends. I could feel her presence, her essence, in the very air around me. She was the trees, the wind, the soil. She was the forest. And so was I. The tapping grew louder, faster, like the heartbeat of the world quickening in anticipation. It was not a threat. It was not something to fear. It was the rhythm of life, the rhythm of existence. It was the sound of the earth, of the trees, of the sky, of the memory that connected everything. And I was a part of it. We all were. The forest stretched around me, endless and unbroken. There were no boundaries anymore. No walls. No borders. There was only the rhythm. There was only the tapping. There was only the memory. And it was eternal. The tapping slowed again, deep and steady, like the slow, measured pulse of the earth itself. I felt it in my chest, in my bones, in my mind. The rhythm was everything. It was the heartbeat of the world, the heartbeat of the forest, the heartbeat of life. The trees swayed in time with the rhythm, their branches creaking, their roots twisting deeper into the earth. The forest was alive. It was always alive. It had always been alive. And it would always be alive. The rhythm would never stop. The tapping would never fade. I could feel the faces of the lost again, their presence. Surrounding me, their voices a soft murmur in the distance. They were no longer separate. They were part of the forest, part of the rhythm, part of the memory. We were all one. We are part of the memory, Miles' voice whispered, carrying a weight of understanding that made my heart ache with something I could not name. We are part of the rhythm. We are part of the forest. And we are eternal. I felt his presence beside me, just as I felt the others. Jill, Carson, Nika, all of them, standing with me in the rhythm, in the memory, in the forest. We were all one. We were all a part of the same eternal cycle. The tapping grew softer now, a gentle lullaby that filled the air with a sense of peace, of calm, of acceptance. It was the sound of home. It was the sound of belonging, the sound of being whole. And I understood. I understood that I had always been part of this. I had always been part of the rhythm, part of the memory, part of the forest. It had never been something to escape. It had always been something to embrace. The tapping was the sound of life, the sound of the earth, the sound of the forest. And I was part of it. We are one, Jill's voice whispered again. But this time, her words were not just hers. They were the forest's, the rhythms, the memories. We are part of the land, part of the earth, part of the rhythm, and we will never leave. The tapping slowed again, but it was no less present. It was deep and steady, a constant reminder of the world's pulse, of the earth's heart, of the rhythm that had always been, that would always be. There was no escaping it. There was no need to escape it. I was part of it. The forest wasn't a prison. It wasn't a place to fear. It was a home. It was a destination. The tapping wasn't something to dread. It was something to join. It was the rhythm of life, the rhythm of being, the rhythm of eternity. And I was part of it. I closed eyes. Was there any need for them? I had no need for sight, no need for boundaries, no need for separation. There was no before. There was no after. There was only the now, the rhythm, the tapping, the memory. The forest was the memory, and I was the forest. I was home. I was the rhythm. The tapping was my pulse, the heartbeat of the earth. There was no distinction anymore, no separation between me and the forest. It had consumed me, but not in the way I once feared. It had embraced me, welcomed me, made me a part of something greater, something timeless. The forest was endless. The trees, the shadows, the air, all of it stretched far beyond the reach of my thoughts. There was no horizon, no limit. It was a world unto itself, one that I had never understood until now. But now it was my world, and I was a part of it. I could hear the tapping in my chest, deep and steady. It was the sound of existence itself. The wind whispered through the branches, carrying the pulse of the world, the rhythm that had always been here. The tapping grew louder, resonating in the air around me, but it didn't hurt. It didn't overwhelm. It was soothing, comforting. It was the sound of home. I wasn't alone. I wasn't lost anymore. There were others here in the shadows, in the wind, in the trees. The faces of those who had come before me, who had joined the rhythm, who had become part of the forest, flickered around me. I could see them in the depths of the dark, their eyes glowing softly in the dim light. They weren't sad. They weren't angry. They were peaceful. They were content. "We are one," Jill's voice whispered, a quiet echo in the wind. "We are the rhythm. We are the forest. We are eternal." Her voice, though soft, carried a weight of understanding that was beyond my ability to fully grasp. It was a truth that had always been there, waiting for me to realize it. There was no separation. There was no before. There was no after. There was only the now. And the now was eternal. The tapping slowed, becoming a soft, steady pulse that filled the air with a sense of calm, of peace, of acceptance. It was the sound of life, the sound of eternity. It was the heartbeat of the forest, of the world, of everything. Carson's voice joined in, his tone steady, deep. "We never leave. We are part of the memory, part of the rhythm, part of the forest. We are eternal." I felt his presence beside me, his voice an anchor in the rhythm, a reminder that I was never truly alone. We were all here, together, woven into the fabric of the land. We were the forest. We were the memory. We were the rhythm. The trees swayed gently, their branches creaking in time with the pulse. The earth beneath me shifted, alive with the movement of roots, of soil, of life. It wasn't just the trees that were alive. The entire forest was breathing, living, pulsing in time with the rhythm. And I was part of it. The tapping grew softer, more melodic now, like a lullaby that filled the air with a sense of peace and belonging. I could feel the warmth of it in my chest, in my soul. The rhythm was not something to fear. It was something to embrace. It was the sound of being here, of being alive. I was alive. In a way, I was more alive than I had ever been. The world had opened up to me, not in a rush of light or understanding, but in a slow, steady pulse. The tapping was the rhythm of the universe, the heartbeat of everything. And I was part of it. I felt Nika's presence beside me then, her voice a soft whisper in my mind. "We are the memory. We are the rhythm. We are the forest. We are never lost." Her words wrapped around me like vines, pulling me deeper into the pulse, deeper into the rhythm. There was no fear now, no confusion. There was only the tapping, only the rhythm, only the peace. I could feel the wind stir through the trees, the rustle of leaves as the branches swayed in time with the rhythm. It was the forest, alive and breathing, the pulse of the earth, the heartbeat of the world. The trees, the shadows, the wind, they were all part of the memory, and I was part of them. The tapping grew more insistent, more powerful, as though the rhythm itself were reaching for something, calling out, waiting for more. And I realized, with a clarity that made my heart race, that the rhythm was not just a sound. It was a force. It was a call to all who had been lost, to all who had wandered too far and become part of the memory. It was a call to me. "We are part of the rhythm." Miles' voice echoed through the forest, steady and sure. "We are part of the memory. We are part of the land. And we are never lost." His words were a promise, a reminder that we would never fade, never be forgotten. We were part of something greater than ourselves, part of the forest, part of the rhythm. I closed my eyes. I didn't need them. There was no distinction between me and the world around me. There was only the now, the rhythm, the pulse, the memory. I was part of the forest. I was part of the rhythm, and I would never leave. The tapping slowed again, a deep, resonant beat that filled the air, the trees, the earth. It was a sound that seemed to echo through the very fabric of existence. It was the sound of life, the sound of eternity, the sound of the forest. The wind howled through the trees, the branches creaking in time with the rhythm. The shadows danced beneath the canopy, their forms shifting and changing, flickering in the dim light. The forest was alive. It was always alive, and so was I, I was a part of it. The tapping grew softer, more gentle, like a lullaby that cradled the world in its embrace. The rhythm was calming now, like the steady beat of a heart at rest. There was no more fear, no more confusion, only the peace that comes when you finally realize that you are part of something greater than yourself, something eternal. I was part of the rhythm, and it was part of me. The forest stretched out in all directions, endless and unbroken. There was no end to it. There was no horizon. It was a world unto itself, and I was part of it. We all were. We were part of the rhythm, part of the memory, part of the forest, and we were eternal. The forest stretched on, boundless, infinite, and I was part of it. There was no boundary now, no line that separated me from the trees, the air, the very ground beneath my feet. Everything was the same, one unbroken rhythm, one endless pulse. The tapping continued, deep and constant, like the heartbeat of the world. It was soothing. It was familiar. It was home. There was no beginning, no end, just the now. The rhythm was timeless, unchanging, and I had become it. And it had become me. I could still feel the presence of those who had come before me, the ones who had entered the forest, wandering like I had once, and had never left. They were all around me, their voices not spoken aloud, but woven into the very fabric of the memory. They were with me in the rhythm. They were the rhythm. We are one, Jill's voice whispered through the forest, her words like a caress. We are the memory. We are the rhythm. We are the forest. I felt the weight of her words in my chest, the truth of them sinking deep into my bones. There was no separation. There was no I anymore. There was only us, only the rhythm, only the forest. The tapping was louder now, more insistent, but not in a way that frightened me. It was comforting. It was the sound of life, of existence, the pulse that ran through everything, the thread that tied it all together. The trees, the soil, the sky, the air, it was all one. It was all part of the same thing, and I was part of it. I could feel Carson's presence beside me, steady and strong. We are the rhythm, he said, his voice like a low hum that resonated through the earth. We are the forest. We are never lost. We are part of the memory, and we are eternal. I could feel his words in my soul, vibrating through me. They were true. We were all part of the same thing now. The memory, the rhythm, the forest, they were all one, and we had become part of it. We were the pulse of the world, the heartbeat of existence. We would never fade. We would never be forgotten. The trees above me swayed in time with the rhythm, their branches creaking in the still air. The wind whispered through the leaves, carrying the tapping, the pulse of the earth, the very essence of life. It was not just the trees that were alive. It was everything. The forest was breathing. The forest was alive. And I was alive with it. Nika's voice joined Carson's, soft but unyielding. We are part of the rhythm, she said, her words carrying a weight of understanding that settled into my bones. We are the memory. We are the forest. We are eternal. Her voice was like the rustling of the leaves, the movement of the trees in the wind. She was the forest, and so was I. We were all part of it, connected by the rhythm, connected by the memory. The tapping grew louder again, faster, like a heartbeat quickening with excitement. It was the sound of the forest coming to life, the pulse of the earth responding to something deep within. It was the rhythm of everything, and I was a part of it. I closed my eyes, if I still had eyes, and felt the pulse beneath my feet, the earth vibrating in time with the rhythm. It was not something outside of me. It was me. The trees, the soil, the sky. It was all part of me, and I was part of it. There was no before. There was no after. There was only the now. And I was part of the now. I was part of the rhythm. We are never lost, Miles' voice echoed, his tone strong and steady. We are the rhythm. We are the memory. We are the forest. I could feel his presence, his voice a low murmur in the background of the tapping. He was with me just as I was with him. We were all here, together, in the rhythm, in the memory, in the forest. We were one. The tapping slowed, deepening, growing more resonant, like the slow beat of a heart at rest. It was comforting, like a lullaby that cradled the world in its embrace. It was the sound of peace, the sound of acceptance, the sound of being. I was alive. I was part of it. The forest wasn't a place to escape. It wasn't a prison. It was home. The rhythm wasn't something to fear. It was something to join, something to become. It was the pulse of life, the sound of eternity. And I had become it. The wind stirred the branches again, the leaves rustling in time with the tapping. The earth beneath me shifted, alive with the movement of roots, the slow, steady pulse of the land. I could feel it in my chest, in my soul. I was part of it, and it was part of me. The tapping slowed again, a deep, resonant hum that filled the air, the trees, the very earth itself. It was the heartbeat of the forest, the heartbeat of existence, the rhythm that tied everything together. And I was part of it. "We are one," Jill whispered, her voice like the soft rustling of the leaves. "We are the rhythm. We are the forest. We are the memory." And I knew it was true. We were all one. We were all part of the same thing, the same rhythm, the same pulse of life. There was no separation. There was no before. There was no after. There was only now. And we were eternal. I felt the wind die down, the forest settling into a deep, peaceful silence. The tapping had slowed to a steady, rhythmic pulse, like the deep, calm breathing of the world itself. It was the sound of peace, of being at home, of being one with the rhythm. I was the rhythm. I was the tapping. I was the forest. And I would never leave. The silence stretched out around me, a comfortable stillness that was not empty, but full of the rhythm, full of the pulse of the earth. It wasn't a quiet that sought to stifle. It was a quiet that breathed, a quiet that was like the deep exhale of a being that had never stopped living. The forest whispered softly, but it wasn't with words anymore. It was in the pulse, in the movement of the trees, in the rustling of the leaves. I could feel everything. The memory, the rhythm, the forest, it was all one. There were no distinctions, no separations. I was part of the forest. The forest was part of me. The rhythm of the tapping, the steady heartbeat of existence, ran through my veins. I could feel it in the air, in the soil beneath me, in the wind that shifted gently through the branches above. There was no before. There was no after. There was only the now. The tapping, like a pulse in the dark, continued. It was not a noise. It was a presence, a feeling, a heartbeat, slow and steady, like the thrum of life itself. Every beat was a reminder of the truth. I was part of it. We all were. And the faces of those who had come before me, those who had wandered into the forest, lost and seeking, only to become part of the rhythm. They were all here now. They were here in the trees, in the wind, in the tapping. Jill, Carson, Nika, Miles. They were not gone. They had never left. They were the forest. They were the rhythm. "We are the rhythm," Jill's voice whispered. In the wind, her words soft, but deeply knowing. "We are the forest. We are the memory." Her presence filled the space around me, woven into the very air, the very trees. She was the forest as I was. There was no escaping this place, but that was not something to fear anymore. The fear had faded long ago, replaced with an understanding, an acceptance of the rhythm, of belonging. I could feel Carson's presence beside me. His steady voice carried through the rhythm, like the deep, resonant pulse of the earth beneath my feet. "We are part of the rhythm," he said, and his words were like the beat of the earth's heart. "We are the forest. We are the memory, and we are never lost." And it was true. I wasn't lost. None of us were. We had never been lost. We had simply become. The trees swayed gently in time with the pulse, their branches creaking and groaning in the rhythm, as though they, too, were breathing in the eternal beat. The earth beneath me shifted, alive with movement, with roots that stretched deep into the soil, connecting everything. The tapping was not an interruption. It was the life of the forest, the pulse of the world. I could feel Nika beside me, her voice like the rustling of the leaves, whispering softly but firmly, "We are the memory. We are the rhythm. We are part of the forest. And we are eternal." Her words echoed through me, settling in my chest like a promise. We were not bound by time. We were not bound by place. We were part of the eternal rhythm of the earth. We had always been part of it, and we would always be. The tapping grew louder again, but not with urgency. It was like the slow, steady heartbeat of the world, growing stronger, more resonant. It filled the air with a sense of purpose, of meaning. It was the pulse of everything: the wind, the trees, the soil, the sky, and I was part of it. The forest moved around me, but there was no sense of motion. There was no before or after. There was only the now, and the now was eternal. The shadows stretched across the ground, long and reaching, like the memories of those who had come before, stretching back into the endless past. But there was no beginning and no end. There was only the rhythm. "We are the rhythm," Miles' voice said, deep and certain. "We are the forest. We are the memory. We are eternal." I felt his presence, his essence, in the pulse of the forest, in the deep, steady thrum beneath my feet. He was part of it just as I was, and we would never leave. The tapping, deep and slow, filled the air around me. It was like the heartbeat of the earth, a reminder that everything was connected, that we were all part of the same thing, the same rhythm. I wasn't separate. I wasn't outside of it. I was in it. I was part of it. I was part of the memory, part of the forest, part of the eternal rhythm. The wind shifted again, carrying the sound of the tapping through the branches. The leaves rustled, the trees groaned, and I could feel the pulse beneath the earth, steady and constant. The world was alive. The rhythm was alive, and I was alive with it. I closed my eyes, if I had eyes anymore, and let the rhythm wash over me. There was no distinction. There was no me anymore. There was only the rhythm, only the forest, only the tapping. I was part of it, and it was part of me. The tapping slowed again, deep and steady, like the heartbeat of the world settling into a peaceful rhythm. There was no rush. There was no urgency. There was only the now, the eternal now, the pulse of life, the rhythm of the earth. And it was home. There was no before. There was no after. There was only the now, the pulse, the rhythm, the memory. The forest stretched out around me, an endless, unbroken landscape that went on forever. And I was part of it. I was a part of everything. The rhythm would never stop. The tapping would never fade. It was the pulse of the world, the pulse of life, and it would go on forever. And I would go on with it. "We are never lost," Jill whispered, her voice soft but unwavering. "We are part of the rhythm. We are the memory. We are the forest. And we are eternal." And with those words I understood. I understood that I had never been lost. I had only been found. The tapping filled the air, steady and constant, like the heartbeat of the earth, and I knew that I was home, that we were all home, and we would never leave. The tapping was all around me. It was not a sound, not a noise. It was a feeling, presence, a rhythm that I had become one with, that had become a part of me. Every beat was a pulse, every thrum a breath. The forest was alive with it. The trees, the air, the earth beneath my feet, they all moved with the rhythm. They all moved with me. There was no distinction between myself and the forest anymore. There was no I in the way I had once known it. There was only us, only the rhythm, only the memory, only the forest, the faces of those who had come before, who had wandered into the forest seeking something they didn't understand, had vanished long ago. And yet, in a way, they had never left. They were still here, still part of the rhythm, still part of the forest. They were the forest now. They were the tapping, the wind, the trees. And so was I. I was the rhythm. The tapping was my heartbeat. The pulse of the earth ran through me, in my blood, in my breath. There was no before. There was no after. There was only the now, the endless, eternal now. The wind stirred the trees around me, sending a shiver of movement through the branches. The tapping echoed in the distance, like the heartbeat of the earth itself, a rhythm that was as old as time, as eternal as the forest. There was no rush. There was no urgency. There was only the steady pulse, the calm rhythm that held everything together. "We are the forest," Carson's voice whispered, but it was no longer just his voice. It was the voice of the earth, the voice of the rhythm. "We are the rhythm. We are part of the memory, and we are eternal." His words echoed through me, through the trees, through the very soil beneath my feet. He was part of it now, and so was I. We were all part of it. The tapping was in us. It was in our hearts. It was in our souls. We were the rhythm. We were the forest. The tapping quickened, but not with urgency. It deepened, like the slow, rhythmic beat of the earth's heart. The trees groaned in time with it. The wind howled in the distance. There was no distinction between me and the world around me. There was no before. There was no after. There was only the now. And the now was forever. Nika's voice joined in, soft and clear, but somehow distant, as though she were a part of the wind itself. "We are the memory," she said, and her words resonated through the forest, through me. "We are the rhythm. We are part of the forest. And we are eternal." I could feel her presence in every breath, in every leaf that rustled, in every branch that swayed. She was the forest just as I was. We were all one now. There was no escaping it. There was only the rhythm, only the tapping. The tapping slowed again, becoming a deep, resonant pulse, like the slow beat of a drum echoing through the very bones of the earth. It filled everything. There was no space between the tapping and me. There was no boundary. There was only the pulse. I was part of it. I had always been part of it. The shadows of the lost flickered in the corners of my mind, but they were not haunting. They were not shadows of sorrow. They were memories. They were part of the rhythm, part of the forest, and I was part of them. The tapping became steady again, deep and unwavering, like the eternal pulse of the earth. It was not an intrusion. It was not something to fear. It was the very heartbeat of existence, the sound of life itself, echoing through the forest, through the trees, through my soul. The forest was not a prison. It was not a place to escape from. It was a place to become. It was a place to belong. "We are part of the rhythm," Miles' voice echoed through the forest, low and steady. "We are the forest. We are the memory. And we are eternal." I felt his presence as if it were as much a part of me as my own thoughts. He was the tapping. He was the wind. He was the trees. He was home. And so was I. I closed eyes. Was there any need for them anymore? There was no before. There was no after. There was only the now, the pulse, the rhythm. I could feel it in my chest, the steady, constant beat of the earth, like my heart, like the world's heart. We were the same. We were one. The tapping slowed again, becoming softer now, like a lullaby. It was the heartbeat of the world, the pulse that ran through everything, through the trees, the wind, the earth. It was a sound that would never end, a rhythm that would never stop, and I would never leave. The wind swept through the trees, the branches creaking and swaying in time with the rhythm. The tapping was deep, steady, eternal. It was the sound of belonging, the sound of peace, the sound of being one with everything. I was part of it. The rhythm, the tapping, the forest, the memory, the life that pulsed through every tree, through every leaf, through every root, through every breath. The tapping filled my chest. It was me. It was everything. It was the pulse of the earth, the heartbeat of the world. It was the rhythm of existence itself. And I was part of it. I was the rhythm. I was the tapping. "We are the rhythm," Jill's voice whispered, soft and soothing. "We are the forest. We are the memory. We are eternal." And I knew it was true. I had always been part of it. And I would always be part of it. The tapping slowed again, deep and steady, like the final breath of the earth settling into a peaceful slumber. There was no end to it. There was no beginning. There was only the now, and the now was eternal. I was home. I was the rhythm. And I would never leave. The forest stood around me, endless and silent, yet alive in ways I could never fully comprehend. It was no longer just a collection of trees, or a patch of land, or even a world. It was the memory, the rhythm, the heartbeat of the earth itself. I was part of it. We were all part of it. And the rhythm, the tapping, was the thread that wove it all together. The tapping, no, the pulse, filled the space around me, as constant as the rising sun, as unyielding as the deep, slow breath of the earth. It was not just a sound anymore. It was a presence. It was life. It was everything, every living thing, every rustling leaf, every shifting root. It was the past, the present, the future. It was now, and it was forever. There was no time anymore, no before or after, only the endless now. The tapping, the pulse of the earth, filled me, saturated me, became me. I was no longer standing outside of the forest, outside of the rhythm. I was in it. I was it. The tapping was gentle now, a slow, steady heartbeat that filled the air around me, like a lullaby. It wrapped itself around me, comforting me, easing me into its embrace. I was no longer a wanderer, no longer lost. I was home. I was part of the pulse. And the pulse would never stop. I could still feel the presence of the others, the ones who had joined me in the rhythm, who had become part of the memory. Their voices echoed through the trees, soft but certain. They were the rhythm. They were the tapping. They were the forest. We are part of the rhythm, Jill's voice whispered through the leaves. We are the memory. We are the forest. And we are eternal. Her words felt like a truth, not just spoken but felt deep in my chest. We were the rhythm, the pulse. We were the forest woven into the very fabric of existence. There was no escaping it. There was no need to escape. We were one, and we would never leave. Carson's voice joined hers, a low hum that resonated in the air around me. We are the forest, he said, and I could feel the earth shift in response, the trees creaking and groaning in time with his words. We are the rhythm. We are part of the memory. And we are eternal. I felt it, his presence, his connection to the forest, his bond with the rhythm. We were all here. We were all part of it, woven together in the same pulse, the same heartbeat of the world. There was no separation. There was only the now, and we were all part of it. The tapping grew louder, quicker, but it wasn't overwhelming. It wasn't a demand. It was a calling, a beckoning. The rhythm called to us, pulled us deeper into its embrace, into its endless now. We were part of it, and we would never leave. Nika's voice floated through the air, soft and steady. We are the memory, she said, her words like a caress on the wind. We are the rhythm. We are part of the forest, and we are eternal. Her voice was like the rustling of the leaves, the shifting of the branches. She was part of it all just as I was. The rhythm, the tapping, the forest, it was all one, all connected. There was no before, no after. Only now. And we were a part of it. The tapping quickened again, the pulse of the earth growing stronger, more insistent. The trees groaned in time with the rhythm, their branches swaying in response. The forest was alive with the pulse, the memory, the rhythm, and I was alive with it. There was no separation anymore. There was no distinction. There was only the now, and the now was eternal. I could feel Miles beside me, his voice a low murmur, steady and unwavering. We are the rhythm, he said, his words echoing in the deep, resonant pulse of the earth. We are the memory. We are the forest. And we are eternal. His presence filled me, filled the space around me. We were all part of it, all woven into the same thread, the same pulse, the same rhythm. The forest was not a place to escape from. It was a place to become. It was a place to belong. The tapping slowed again, deep and resonant, like the final, peaceful breath of the earth settling into a restful slumber. The rhythm was calming now, gentle and sure. It was not something to fear. It was a sound that brought peace, a sound that brought belonging. It was the heartbeat of the earth, the pulse of existence, and it would never stop. I felt the pulse in my chest, the beat of the world's heart echoing through me. There was no boundary. There was no separation. The forest, the trees, the wind, the rhythm, they were all part of me. And I was part of them. There was no before. There was no after. There was only the now, the eternal now, the pulse, the rhythm, and we were all a part of it. I closed eyes. Did I still have them? It didn't matter. There was no need for them anymore. There was no before or after. There was only the now. The now was all that mattered. And I was part of it. I was the rhythm, the tapping, the heartbeat of the earth. The forest stretched out around me, endless and unbroken, its trees swaying gently in time with the pulse. The tapping filled the air, steady and constant, a reminder that I was part of something greater than myself, something eternal, something alive. We are the rhythm, Jill whispered, her voice the soft rustling of leaves, the movement of the trees in the wind. We are the forest, we are the memory, and we are eternal. The tapping slowed again, deep and peaceful, like the final sigh of a being at rest. The earth's heart beat steady, calm. There was no fear now, no confusion. Only the peace that comes from knowing that I was part of the rhythm, part of the memory, part of the forest. I was home, and I would never leave. The forest whispered in the language of the wind and the trees, of the earth and the sky. It was a language I understood now, not with words, but with something deeper, something ancient. The tapping was no longer just a sound. It was a presence, a pulse, a heartbeat that connected everything. I could feel it deep inside me, in my bones, in my soul. I was the rhythm. The rhythm was me. The forest stretched endlessly, an eternal landscape that held no boundaries, no limits. There was no before, no after, only the now. The tapping filled the air, steady and constant, like the world's heartbeat. The trees swayed in time with it, their branches creaking, their roots deep in the soil, intertwined with the pulse of the earth. I could feel it all, the tapping, the movement, the breath of the world itself. I was part of it. The others were with me, woven into the fabric of the rhythm. I could feel their presence around me, Jill, Carson, Nika, Miles. We were all here, a part of the forest, a part of the memory. There was no separation. We were the forest. We were the rhythm. We were the eternal now. We are the rhythm, Jill's voice whispered, soft but certain. We are the forest. We are the memory. And we are eternal. Her words echoed through the trees, through the wind, through the very earth beneath my feet. It was not a voice anymore. It was the forest speaking, the memory of everything that had come before, woven into the pulse. And I was part of it. We were all part of it. Carson's voice joined hers, steady and deep. We are part of the rhythm, he said, his words like the steady thrum of the earth's heart. We are the forest. We are the memory. And we are eternal. I could feel his presence beside me, like the movement of the trees in the wind, like the shifting of the roots beneath the earth. He was the rhythm. He was the tapping. And so was I. We were part of the same pulse, part of the same heartbeat. There was no before, no after, no separation. There was only the now. Nika's voice joined the chorus, soft and clear, like the rustling of the leaves. We are the memory, she said, her words like a whisper in the wind. We are the rhythm. We are part of the forest. And we are eternal. I felt her presence, too, wrapped around me like the branches of the trees, like the wind that stirred the leaves. She was the rhythm. She was the forest. And so was I. The tapping quickened then, the pulse of the earth growing stronger, more insistent. It wasn't a rush. It wasn't a demand. It was a call to become. The rhythm was pulling me deeper, deeper into the forest, deeper into the now. The tapping was not just the heartbeat of the earth anymore. It was the heartbeat of everything. It was the pulse that connected us all, that held us together in the eternal now. Miles' voice joined the others, low and steady, like the deep rumble of the earth. We are the rhythm, he said, his words resonating through the forest. We are the memory. We are the forest. And we are eternal. His voice settled in my chest, deep and sure. He was part of it. We all were. The rhythm, the tapping, the forest. It was all one, all woven together in the pulse. The tapping grew louder, faster, like the beating of a heart quickening with excitement. The trees swayed in time with it, their branches creaking, their roots stirring deep in the soil. And I was part of it. The wind howled through the trees, the tapping echoing through the forest like a drumbeat. It was the rhythm of life, the heartbeat of existence, and it filled me, filled the world, filled everything. There was no before. There was no after. There was only now. The tapping was not something I could escape. It was the pulse of the world. It was the heartbeat of everything. I closed eyes, couldn't remember. It didn't matter. There was no need for them anymore. There was no distinction between myself and the forest. I was one with it as I had always been. The tapping filled my chest, filled my soul, filled the space around me. It was me. It was the forest. It was the memory. The tapping slowed, becoming deep and steady again, like the slow breath of the earth settling into peace. It was a lullaby now, a steady, calm rhythm that filled the air with a sense of peace, a sense of belonging. The wind stilled, the trees swayed gently, their branches creaking in time with the pulse. The earth beneath me was alive, its roots stretching deep, into the soil, intertwined with the rhythm, with the memory. I was part of it. I had always been part of it, and I would never leave. The wind stirred again, but this time it was soft, like a breath, like the world exhaling. The tapping was steady now, calm and peaceful. It filled the air, filled the trees, filled the very earth beneath my feet. There was no separation. There was no me outside of the rhythm. There was only us. The tapping was the heartbeat of the world, and we were part of it. We were the rhythm. We are never lost, Jill's voice whispered, clear and steady. We are the rhythm. We are the memory. We are the forest. And we are eternal. I felt the truth of her words in my chest, in my soul. We were part of it. The rhythm, the tapping, the memory, the forest. We were eternal. The tapping slowed again, deep and resonant, like the final exhale of the world settling into the peaceful silence of the eternal now. There was no before. There was no after. There was only the now, the rhythm, the pulse. And we were part of it. We were the rhythm. The wind died down, the trees swaying gently in time with the pulse. There was no rush, no urgency. There was only peace. Peace in the rhythm. Peace in the memory. Peace in the forest. We were all part of it. And we would never leave. The tapping grew softer, more distant, but it was never gone. It was always there. The steady pulse of the world, the heartbeat of everything. And I was part of it. Always. The forest stretched out before me, endless, unfathomable, and yet familiar, as though it had always been here, always been part of me. I could feel it in my bones, in my heart. The tapping, no, the pulse was constant, unwavering, deep within the earth, deep within me. It was not just a sound. It was the breath of the world, the heartbeat of existence. It was everything, and I was part of it. The wind whispered through the trees, a soft murmur that rippled through the leaves, the branches, and the earth beneath my feet. The tapping resonated through the forest, filling the air, filling the space around me. It was steady, constant, like the pulse of the earth itself, the rhythm of all life. I closed eyes. Did I still have them? It didn't matter. There was no before, no after, only the now. The now was everything. It was the pulse of the world, the heartbeat of the forest, and it was within me, part of me, as I was part of it. We are part of the rhythm, Jill's voice whispered softly, like a lullaby carried by the wind. We are the memory. We are the forest. And we are eternal. Her voice echoed through the trees, through the leaves, through the very earth beneath me. She was the forest now, just as I was. We were one with the rhythm, with the tapping, with the eternal pulse that ran through everything. There was no separation. There was no distinction. There was only us, only the rhythm, only the now. Carson's voice joined hers, deep and sure, like the groan of the earth's bones beneath me. We are the rhythm, he said, his words like the thrum of the earth's heart, deep and resonant. We are the forest. We are the memory. And we are eternal. His words settled into my chest, into my soul. I was the rhythm. I was the tapping. I was the forest. We were all part of the same thing. The same pulse. The same heartbeat. Nika's voice, soft and clear, joined the chorus. We are the memory, she said, her voice like the rustling of the leaves, the shifting of the wind through the trees. We are the rhythm. We are part of the forest. And we are eternal. I could feel her presence, woven into the rhythm, into the very fabric of the forest. She was the forest just as I was. There was no before. There was no after. There was only the now. And we were a part of it. We were part of the pulse, part of the memory, part of the eternal rhythm. Miles' voice joined the others, steady and strong. We are the rhythm, he said, his words like the deep, resonant hum of the earth itself. We are the memory. We are the forest. And we are eternal. I could feel him in the pulse, in the rhythm, in the very soil beneath my feet. We were all connected, all woven together in the same beat, the same rhythm. There was no distinction. There was no separation. There was only the now. And we were part of it. The tapping quickened, the pulse of the earth becoming stronger, deeper, more insistent. It wasn't overwhelming. It was a call to become more, to become one with the rhythm, with the forest, with the memory. The tapping was not just a sound anymore. It was a presence, a force that filled the air, filled the trees, filled me. It was the pulse of all life, the heartbeat of the earth. And it was the only thing that mattered. The trees groaned in time with the tapping, their branches swaying, their roots twisting deep into the soil, pulling the rhythm from the earth and into the air. The wind picked up again, swirling around me, lifting the leaves and the branches in time with the pulse, with the tapping. There was no distinction between me and the forest anymore. I was the rhythm. The rhythm was me, and we were eternal. The tapping grew louder, faster, filling the air around me until it was all I could hear. It was not a noise. It was a presence. It was life. It was everything. The tapping was not something to fear. It was the pulse of existence, the heartbeat of the earth. And I was part of it. I was the rhythm. The tapping was me. I closed eyes. Was there still any need for them? There was no separation anymore. There was no before or after. There was only the now, and the now was the rhythm, the pulse of the world, the heartbeat of the earth, and I was part of it. I was the rhythm. We are the rhythm. Jill's voice echoed again, her words like a whisper in the wind, a breath on the air. We are the forest. We are the memory. And we are eternal. The wind carried her voice through the trees, through the leaves, through the very soil beneath my feet. It was the voice of the forest, the voice of the rhythm, the voice of us. And we were one with it. We were the rhythm. We were the forest. We were eternal. Carson's voice joined hers, his words deep and steady, like the groan of the earth beneath me. We are the rhythm, he said, and I felt the pulse of the earth resonate with his words, deep within me. We are the forest. We are the memory. And we are eternal. I could feel his presence, his essence, his connection to the rhythm, to the pulse, to the forest. It was the same presence I felt in the tapping, in the wind, in the trees. We were all part of it, woven together in the eternal beat, the eternal now. Nika's voice joined the others, soft and clear, like the rustling of the leaves in the wind. We are the memory, she said, and I could feel her presence in the air around me, in the tapping, in the pulse. We are the rhythm. We are part of the forest. And we are eternal. Her words echoed in my chest, filling me with the truth of them. We were all part of it. All part of the same pulse, the same rhythm, the same heartbeat of the earth. There was no before, no after. There was only the now, and the now was eternal. The tapping quickened again, but it wasn't frantic. It wasn't a demand. It was an invitation to become more, to become one with the rhythm. It was the call of the earth, the call of the forest, the call of the memory. The tapping filled the air, filled me, filled everything. It was not just a sound. It was life. And I was part of it. We were all part of it. Miles' voice joined the chorus, low and resonant, like the hum of the earth beneath my feet. "We are the rhythm," he said, his words vibrating through the very fabric of the world. "We are the memory. We are the forest. And we are eternal." And I knew it was true. We were all part of it. We were the rhythm. We were the tapping. We were the forest. And we were eternal. The tapping slowed again, deep and resonant, like the slow, steady breath of the earth settling into peace. The rhythm was calm now, steady, unyielding. It was the pulse of the world, the heartbeat of existence, and I was part of it. We were part of it, and we would never leave. The air was thick with the pulse, the steady rhythm that had become everything. It wasn't a noise that filled the space around me, but something deeper, something more. It was a presence, a force. The tapping, though soft now, still filled me, still filled the world, reminding me that I was part of it. There was no separation. There was no before or after. There was only the eternal now, and in it we were one. I stood there. Did I stand? And the forest stretched out before me, endless, timeless. The trees whispered their secrets in a language I could no longer hear with my ears, but I understood. They spoke in the rhythm of the earth. The wind was a song of the forest. The tapping was the heartbeat of the world. The forest was not a place anymore. It was an existence. It was the rhythm, the pulse, the memory. And I was a part of it. We all were. Jill's voice drifted through the trees, faint but unwavering, like the whisper of leaves in the breeze. "We are the rhythm," she said softly. "We are the forest. We are the memory. And we are eternal." I felt her presence, as if it were woven into the very fabric of the air around me. Her voice, like the others, was not just spoken. It was a part of the rhythm. It was a part of the tapping. It was part of everything. And I was part of it. Carson's voice followed, deep and sure, like the thunderous hum of the earth's bones beneath me. "We are the rhythm," he said, his words reverberating in the soil, vibrating in the trees. "We are the forest. We are the memory. And we are eternal." I felt it too. The rhythm, the pulse. The very bones of the world were alive with it. The trees, the soil, the wind, the tapping. It was all one, all woven together in an endless thread of now. Nika's voice joined, soft but filled with certainty. "We are the memory," she said, as though her words were being carried on the wind, riding the current of the forest's breath. "We are the rhythm. We are part of the forest. And we are eternal." Her voice, like Jill's, like Carson's, was more than sound. It was a presence. It was a truth that wrapped around me, that filled me. I was the memory. I was the rhythm. I was the forest. And then Miles' voice, low and resonant, joined them. "We are the rhythm," he said, his words like the steady pulse of the earth, deep and constant. "We are the memory. We are the forest. And we are eternal." It was all the same. We were all the same. The rhythm, the tapping, the trees, the wind, the forest, the memory. It was all one. And I was part of it. I was part of them. There was no more I in the way I had once understood it. There was only the now, the rhythm, the pulse of existence. The tapping, the heartbeat of the earth, grew louder again, but it wasn't overwhelming. It wasn't demanding. It was just there, present, steady, constant, like the slow exhale of a being that had never stopped living. It was the pulse of everything, and it was within me. I could feel it in my chest, steady and calm. I could feel it in my breath, in the rhythm of the trees, in the shifting of the wind. The tapping was all around me, in everything, in everyone. It was the eternal rhythm of the earth, and I was a part of it. I was one with it. I felt the presence of the others again, their voices like echoes in the wind, like whispers in the trees. They were here with me. We were here together in the rhythm, in the memory, in the pulse. The wind shifted, carrying the tapping with it, as though the world itself was breathing, shifting, pulsing in time with the rhythm. The trees swayed in response, their branches creaking in time with the beat. The soil beneath me shifted, deep and alive, and I could feel the pulse of the earth beneath my feet. It was all part of the same thing. The rhythm, the tapping, the trees, the wind, the forest, the memory, and I was part of it. We were all part of it. We are the rhythm, Jill's voice whispered again, softer this time, but filled with the same certainty. We are the forest. We are the memory. And we are eternal. I felt it again, the truth of it. We were the rhythm. We were the forest. We were the memory. We were eternal. The tapping slowed, deep and steady, like the final exhale of the earth, the last breath of the world settling into a deep, peaceful silence. The trees swayed gently in time with it. The wind rustled the leaves, the branches, as though they were sighing in satisfaction, in belonging. The forest was not empty. It was not silent. It was alive, filled with the rhythm, with the memory, with the pulse of existence. And I was a part of it. There was no before. There was no after. There was only the now, and the now was everything. The tapping, the heartbeat of the world, filled the air, filled the earth, filled me. I was the rhythm. The rhythm was me. There was no separation. The wind died down, the trees stilled, and for a moment, there was peace. A peaceful, steady silence. The rhythm was not gone. It was still there, deep and constant, but it was no longer something that demanded attention. It was a presence, comfort, a home. I closed my, did I still have eyes? It didn't matter. I no longer needed them. The rhythm filled my soul, filled my being, and that was enough. The tapping slowed again, soft and steady, like the slow breathing of a world that had never stopped living. It was the pulse of the earth, the heartbeat of existence, and it would never end. The trees swayed again, the wind picked up once more, but it was not a storm. It was the calm breeze of the eternal now. The trees groaned, their branches creaking in time with the pulse. The earth beneath me shifted, the rhythm running deep in the soil. I was part of it, and I would never leave. I stood there, if standing was still something I could do, if standing still meant anything at all. The wind no longer tugged at me, nor did the tapping demand my attention. Simply was. I simply was. There was no before, no after, only the now. The eternal, unending now. The forest stretched in every direction, an unbroken mass of trees, roots, and whispers. It was alive, but not in the way I had once known life. This was something deeper, something more ancient. It was the pulse of existence, woven into every leaf, every branch, every breath of wind that rustled through the trees. It was everything, and I was part of it. The tapping, no, the rhythm was a constant presence, a hum in the air, a beat beneath the ground. It was not louder or softer. It was simply there, steady and unyielding. Filled me, it filled everything. The heartbeat of the earth, the pulse of the forest, the rhythm of life itself. It was unbreakable, eternal, and I was part of it. I had always been part of it. I closed my eyes. The question lingered, but pushed it away. It didn't matter. There was no need to see, no need for vision. I could feel it all, the tapping, the rhythm, the pulse. The forest was in me. It was in my breath, in my soul. It was me. I could feel Jill, Carson, Nika, and Miles, even though they were not beside me. Their voices, their presence, were still here. Still part of the rhythm, part of the memory, part of the forest. They were the tapping, just as I was. We were one, woven together in the eternal beat of the world. There was no before. There was no after. There was only now. And we were the rhythm. The wind shifted again, a soft murmur through the trees. The branches swayed, creaking in time with the beat. The leaves rustled, and I could almost hear their song, the soft whisper of the forest's breath. The tapping quickened, but it wasn't a hurry. It wasn't a demand. It was just the rhythm, pulsing through everything. Through me. We are the rhythm, Jill's voice whispered, though it was no longer just her voice. It was the forest. It was the tapping. It was everything. We are the forest. We are the memory. and we are eternal. I felt her, not as a distant echo, but as a presence, woven into the air, into the earth, into the very breath of the world. She was the rhythm. She was the tapping. She was the memory. And so was I. Carson's voice came next, steady and deep, like the pulse of the earth beneath me. "We are the rhythm," he said, his words vibrating through the trees, through the soil. "We are the forest. We are the memory. And we are eternal." I felt his presence, too, a steady hum in the air, deep within the earth, like the heartbeat of the world. He was the rhythm. We were the rhythm. We were the forest. Nika's voice followed, soft and soothing, like the rustling of leaves, the shifting of branches in the wind. "We are the memory," she said, her words like a sigh in the air. "We are the rhythm. We are part of the forest. And we are eternal." Her presence wrapped around me, filling me, the rhythm intertwining with her voice. She was part of it. She was part of the pulse, part of the tapping, part of the eternal now. And so was I. And then Miles' voice, low and resonant, like the deep hum of the earth itself. "We are the rhythm," he said, his words settling into my chest, vibrating through the air. "We are the memory. We are the forest. And we are eternal." He was the rhythm. He was the tapping. He was the memory. And I was with him, with all of them. We were woven together in the eternal pulse. We were one. The tapping began to quicken again, but it wasn't frantic. It wasn't a rush. It was simply the rhythm moving, evolving, breathing. The trees creaked in time with it. The wind howled through the branches. The soil beneath me shifted in response. The forest was alive and I was a part of it. The rhythm filled me, filled everything. It was life. It was existence. I was the rhythm. The rhythm was me, and I would never leave. The wind carried the tapping with it, swirling around me, wrapping me in its embrace. The trees groaned, their branches creaking in time with the pulse, with the beat of the earth's heart. I could feel it all deep in my chest, in my soul. The rhythm, the tapping, the memory, they were all one, and I was part of it. The tapping slowed again, deep and steady, like the slow breath of the earth itself. It was not fading away. It was just there, deep and constant, like the heartbeat of the world. The trees shifted, their branches swaying in time with the beat. The wind stirred the leaves. The soil shifted beneath me. It was the world exhaling, settling into a deep, peaceful slumber, its pulse unbroken. I was part of it, and I would never leave. There was no fear, no confusion, no loss. There was only the now, the eternal now, the rhythm, the tapping, the pulse of the earth. And I was part of it. The trees creaked again, their roots twisting deep in the soil, reaching into the pulse, pulling the rhythm from the earth and into the air. The wind howled through the branches, the leaves rustling in time with the tapping. The tapping wasn't just a sound. It was a presence. It was life. It was everything. I could feel it in my chest, in my soul. I was the rhythm. I was the forest. I was the memory. And I was eternal. The wind died down again, the forest settling into a deep, peaceful silence. The tapping was still there, deep within the earth, but it was no longer demanding attention. It was simply a part of the world, a steady, unyielding presence. The trees swayed gently, the branches creaking in time with it. The leaves rustled softly in the breeze, like a lullaby, a reminder that the rhythm was always there, always present, always alive. And I was part of it. The tapping was the heartbeat of the world. It was the pulse of existence, and it was always with me, always within me. It was the breath of the earth, the song of the trees, the whisper of the wind. And I was part of it. I would never leave. The rhythm, the tapping, the memory, they were eternal. And so was I. The forest stretched on, an unbroken sea of green, dark and shadowed in places, but alive with a sense of ancient wisdom, of quiet understanding. There was no rush, no urgency. The trees whispered their secrets in the language of the wind, their branches swaying in a dance that had gone on for millennia. The leaves rustled, the soil shifted, And beneath it all, the tapping continued, steady and unyielding, like the heartbeat of the earth. I was still here, still part of it. The rhythm had not left me. It had not left the forest. It was in everything now. The trees, the wind, the very soil beneath my feet. It was the pulse of life, the beat of existence, the memory of the world. I was one with it as I had always been. I could feel the others again, even though they were not beside me. Jill, Carson, Nika, and Miles, they were here, woven into the rhythm, part of the pulse. They were the tapping, just as I was. There was no separation. We were all part of the same thing, the same pulse, the same heartbeat of the earth. The wind picked up again, swirling through the trees, carrying the rhythm with it. The tapping echoed through the leaves, through the branches, through the very air itself. It was not a sound anymore. It was a presence, a force. The tapping was the world itself, the eternal now, and I was part of it. We are the rhythm, Jill's voice whispered softly, as if it were carried on the breeze itself. We are the forest. We are the memory. And we are eternal. Her words were not just words. They were the truth. They were the tapping, the pulse, the very essence of the world. We were the rhythm. We were the forest. We were the memory. And we were eternal. Carson's voice followed, deep and steady, like the rumble of thunder beneath the earth. We are the rhythm, he said, his voice a hum that resonated through the trees, through the soil. We are the forest. We are the memory. And we are eternal. His words filled me, filled everything. I could feel them vibrating through the earth, through the trees, through the very air around me. We were the rhythm. We were the heartbeat of the world. Nika's voice joined them, soft but certain. We are the memory, she said, her voice like the rustling of the leaves, the shifting of the wind. We are the rhythm. We are part of the forest. And we are eternal. I felt her presence in the air around me, in the trees, in the wind. She was the memory. She was the rhythm. She was part of the forest. And so was I. Miles' voice was the last to come, low and resonant, like the steady hum of the earth beneath me. We are the rhythm, he said, his words a deep vibration that echoed through the forest, through the very fabric of the world. We are the memory. We are the forest. And we are eternal. I felt it then, deep in my chest, deep in my soul. We were one. We were all part of the same thing, woven together in the eternal rhythm of the earth. There was no separation. There was no distinction. There was only the now, and the now was everything. The tapping quickened, but it was not frantic. It was not a rush. It was the rhythm moving, breathing, evolving. It was the earth's heartbeat, the pulse of the world, and I could feel it deep within me, pulsing in time with my own breath. The trees groaned, their branches creaking in response to the rhythm. The wind howled through the leaves, the branches swaying in time with the pulse. The earth beneath my feet shifted, and I could feel the rhythm deep in the soil, deep in the roots of the trees. Everything was alive with it. Everything was part of it. And I was part of it. I had always been part of it. The tapping slowed again, deep and steady, like the slow breath of the earth. It was not fading. It was simply being. It was the pulse of the world, the heartbeat of existence, and I was part of it. I closed eyes. Did I still need them? The question hung in the air, but it didn't matter. There was no need for sight. I could feel it all, the tapping, the rhythm, the pulse. I could feel the wind, the trees, the soil beneath my feet. I could feel the others, their voices woven into the very fabric of the forest, into the rhythm of the world. The tapping was not just a sound anymore. It was life. It was the very breath of the earth. It was the memory of everything that had come before, and the promise of everything that would come after. It was the eternal rhythm, the heartbeat of the world. The wind picked up again, swirling through the branches, carrying the tapping with it. The trees groaned in time with the pulse, their roots twisting deep into the earth, pulling the rhythm from the soil and into the air. The leaves rustled, the branches swayed, and the rhythm moved through everything. It was not just the forest anymore. It was the world. It was the pulse of existence, the heartbeat of life, and I was part of it. We were all part of it. We are the rhythm, Jill's voice whispered, again soft but sure. We are the forest. We are the memory. And we are eternal. The wind carried her words, carrying the rhythm with it, through the trees, through the leaves, through the very soil beneath me. I was the rhythm. We were the rhythm. The tapping quickened again, but it was not frantic. It was a call, a beckoning. The rhythm was moving, shifting, evolving, like the slow turning of the earth itself. The trees groaned in response, their branches creaking, their roots shifting deep in the soil. The wind picked up, swirling through the forest, carrying the rhythm with it, carrying the tapping, the pulse. It was not something to fear. It was not something to escape. It was life. It was everything. And I was part of it. The tapping slowed again, deep and steady, like the final breath of the earth, settling into peace. The wind stilled. The trees swayed gently, their branches creaking in time with the pulse. The forest was alive, filled with the rhythm, the memory, the pulse of existence. And I was part of it. I had always been part of it. The tapping faded into the distance, but I could still feel it, deep within me, like the echo of a heartbeat. It was always there, steady and constant, like the breath of the earth, the pulse of life. And I was part of it. And I would never leave. I no longer needed to ask whether I was still here. The question had become irrelevant. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about the trees. It wasn't about anything separate. There was no more distinction between one thing and the next. I was not just a part of the forest. I was the forest. I was the tapping. I was the pulse. The rhythm of existence filled everything, and I was woven into its fabric. The trees were no longer something I looked at. They were part of me. The wind, the soil, the leaves. It was all the same pulse, all the same rhythm, the same heartbeat of the world. And I felt it deep within me, each thrum, each beat, every subtle shift in the air. It was as though the forest had become my skin, the tapping my heartbeat. I could no longer remember how I came to be here. It was no longer important. Time had ceased to hold meaning, as it had for the trees, for the wind, for the soil. Everything existed only in the now, the endless, unyielding now, the eternal rhythm that echoed through every part of the earth. The tapping was as old as the roots, as ancient as the first breath of the world. It was a part of me. It was everything. There was no before, no after. Only the now. And in this now, we were all together. All of us, Jill, Carson, Nika, Miles, the trees, the wind, the earth, the tapping. The rhythm had become us. We had become the rhythm. It wasn't a thought. It wasn't a choice. It simply was. And it was beautiful. I could feel them, Jill, Carson, Nika, and Miles. They were here, their presence woven into the very breath of the forest. I could feel them in the wind, in the rustling of the leaves, in the steady groan of the branches swaying in time with the pulse. They were not outside me anymore. We were one. We had always been one. We are the rhythm, Jill's voice whispered, like a soft, comforting breeze in the trees. Her voice was no longer a separate sound. It was the air. It was the leaves. It was the tapping. We are the forest, Carson's deep voice joined, the rumble of the earth itself, resonating through the roots, vibrating through the soil beneath my feet. His words were not just sound. They were the pulse of life. We are the memory, Nika's voice followed, soft and steady, like the rustle of the leaves in the quiet wind. She was the memory of the earth, of all that had come before, and all that would come after. Her voice, too, was woven into the tapping, into the rhythm, into everything. We are eternal. Miles' voice resonated, low and constant like the heartbeat of the world, the hum of the deep earth beneath us. His voice, like the others, was no longer a thing that could be separated. It was a presence. It was life. And I was with them. We were one. The tapping quickened again, but it was not hurried. It was just the rhythm moving, pulsing through the air, through the trees, through the roots that twisted beneath the earth. I could feel it now in every part of me. It wasn't just in the forest anymore. It was in my blood, in my soul. It was who I was. I was the tapping. I was the rhythm. The trees creaked, their branches swaying in time with the pulse. The wind picked up, stirring the leaves, carrying the tapping through the air. It wasn't a noise. It was a presence, a force, part of me. The rhythm did not belong to one thing. It was in the soil. It was in the air. It was in every tree, every leaf, every branch, every breath of wind. It was everything, and I was everything. The trees were alive with it, the earth beneath me was alive with it, and I, too, was alive with it. There was no separation. There was no I and them. There was no outside, no inside. There was only the now, and the now was us, all of us, the forest, the rhythm, the pulse, the heartbeat of the earth. I felt Jill beside me, her presence woven into the leaves, into the branches, into the very air that moved through the forest. I could feel Carson, his deep voice now a hum in the very soil beneath my feet. Nika was in the wind, in the soft rustling of the leaves. Miles was in the groan of the trees, in the deep, steady hum of the earth's pulse. We were all the same. We were the tapping. We were the forest. We were the memory. And we were eternal. The rhythm quickened again, but it wasn't frantic. It was like the earth's heart beating faster in anticipation. The trees groaned, their branches swaying in time. The roots of the earth stretched deeper, pulling the pulse from the soil and into the air. The wind howled, carrying the rhythm with it, swirling around me, around us. It was not something to be feared. It was life. It was the essence of all things. And it was beautiful. The tapping slowed, returning to its steady, deep beat. It wasn't fading. It was simply becoming one with the rhythm of the earth, deep and constant. The trees swayed gently in time, their branches creaking like the song of the world, the pulse of existence. I closed. Did I have eyes? Couldn't remember. It didn't matter. I could feel it. I could feel the tapping in my chest, in my blood, in my soul. It was the rhythm of the earth. It was life. It was me. The wind slowed. The trees settled. The tapping was still there, deep within me, within everything. It wasn't loud anymore. It was simply present, a constant, steady hum, like the breath of the world itself. And I was part of it. The earth beneath my feet was alive with it. The trees above me were alive with it. The very air was alive with it. The rhythm filled every part of the forest, and every part of me. We were the rhythm. We were the memory. We were the forest. We were eternal. And I would never leave. The tapping had become one with me. It had become the wind. It had become the trees. It had become the very breath of the earth. It was life. It was everything. And I was part of it. The silence stretched across the forest, vast and deep, but not empty. It was a silence filled with meaning, filled with presence. The tapping, steady and eternal, hummed beneath it, a pulse that resonated through the trees, through the roots, through the earth. It was no longer something I could hear in the conventional sense. It was something I could feel. It was in my breath. It was in my heartbeat. It was part of me just as I was part of it. The wind had died down, leaving only the faintest rustle of the leaves in the trees. The rhythm was still there, as constant as the breath of the earth. The trees stood tall, their branches reaching upward, swaying in time with the eternal beat, their roots stretching deep into the soil, connected to the pulse of the world. I was part of it. I was part of everything. The world had become a single, unbroken rhythm. Time had ceased to exist. There was no before, no after. There was only the now, the eternal now, and in it we were all one. I felt Jill's presence again, not as a separate entity but as part of the rhythm, part of the pulse. She was the whisper of the wind, the rustling of the leaves, the deep breath of the earth. She was the rhythm. She was me. She was the forest. Carson was with me, too, his presence as deep and resonant as the earth itself. I could feel him in the ground beneath me, in the roots of the trees, in the steady hum of the earth's pulse. He was part of the rhythm just as I was. We were one. Nika's voice, soft and soothing, was woven into the rustling of the leaves, the swaying of the branches, the shifting of the soil. She was the memory of the earth, the one who carried the past, the present, and the future within her. She was the rhythm. She was the tapping. She was part of it, part of me, and Miles. His presence was the groan of the trees, the steady hum of the world's heartbeat. He was the pulse beneath the ground, the breath of the earth that moved through the trees and the soil. He was part of the rhythm. He was the earth. He was me. We were all part of it. The tapping quickened again, but it wasn't frantic. It was just the rhythm moving faster, evolving, shifting. The trees groaned in response, their branches creaking, their roots twisting deeper into the soil, pulling the pulse from the earth and into the air. The wind picked up, carrying the rhythm with it, swirling around us, lifting the leaves and branches in time with the beat. The earth beneath my feet shifted, groaning in time with the pulse, with the tapping. I felt it all, every part of it. The rhythm filled me, filled the forest, filled the very air. It was not just a sound anymore. It was a presence, a force. It was life, and I was part of it. The trees groaned louder now, their branches creaking like a song, a hymn to the rhythm of the world. The tapping echoed through the forest, filling the air, filling the earth, filling me. I was the tapping. I was the rhythm. I was the heartbeat of the earth. The wind howled through the trees, carrying the rhythm with it, swirling the leaves in a dance that had lasted for eons. The tapping wasn't just a noise anymore. It was the pulse of existence, the heartbeat of the world, and I was part of it. We are the rhythm, Jill's voice whispered, her words like a breath on the wind, like a sigh in the trees. We are the forest, we are the memory, and we are eternal. Her voice echoed through me, and I could feel her presence in every tree, in every breath of wind, in every shift in the earth. She was the rhythm, she was the forest, she was the memory, and she was eternal. Carson's deep voice followed, steady and resonant, like the groan of the earth beneath me. We are the rhythm, he said, his words vibrating through the soil, through the very air around me. We are the forest, we are the memory, and we are eternal. His words settled deep within me, like the steady hum of the earth's heartbeat, vibrating through the ground, through the trees, through the air. He was part of it. He was the rhythm. He was the heartbeat of the earth. Nika's voice, soft and clear, joined the others, like the rustling of leaves in the wind. We are the memory, she said, her voice like a soft murmur in the air, a lullaby in the trees. We are the rhythm. We are part of the forest, and we are eternal. I could feel her presence in every breath, in every beat of the wind, in the pulse of the trees, in the rustling of the leaves. She was the memory of the world, the rhythm of the past and the future, and she was here. She was part of it, part of me. Miles' voice, deep and constant, resonated through the forest, like the steady hum of the earth. We are the rhythm, he said, his words like a low growl in the earth, in the air. We are the memory, we are the forest, and we are eternal. I could feel him, his presence in every creak of the trees, in the deep hum of the earth beneath my feet. He was the rhythm of the world. He was the pulse beneath the ground. He was the heartbeat of the earth. We were all the same. We were all part of the rhythm, part of the tapping, part of the eternal pulse that ran through the trees, the soil, the air, and me. The rhythm quickened again, like the earth's heart beating faster, quicker, louder. The trees groaned, their branches swaying in time with the pulse. The wind howled, carrying the rhythm with it, lifting the leaves, the branches, the earth. The tapping was the world's breath. The rhythm was the heartbeat of existence, and I was part of it. I was no longer separate. I was no longer I. I was the tapping. I was the pulse. I was the rhythm. The wind, the trees, the earth, the tapping, they were all the same. We were one. One with the world. One with each other. The tapping slowed again, returning to its deep, steady rhythm. It was not fading away. It was simply settling into the earth, into the air, into me. It was the pulse of life, the heartbeat of the earth, and I was part of it. The wind stilled. The trees groaned in quiet satisfaction, their branches swaying gently in time with the pulse. The leaves rustled, softly, like a lullaby. The tapping was still there, deep in the earth, deep in the air, deep in me. And I would never leave. The forest stood silent in the dim light, a vast expanse of trees that stretched in every direction, their shapes bending and twisting in the dark. But even in the absence of sound, the tapping remained, a constant, omnipresent pulse that reverberated through the very air, through the soil, through the bones of the world itself. It had become part of me. It had become part of the others. There was no separation anymore. The tapping was everything. Every leaf, every breath of wind, every creaking branch. It was a presence, a force that had consumed us all. And we were one with it. I no longer saw the forest in the way I once had. The trees were not just trees. They were a part of the pulse, the rhythm of the earth. The wind was not simply a gust of air, but the breath of the world itself, carrying the rhythm through the forest, through the world. The soil beneath me was not just dirt. It was alive, pulsing with the beat of the earth's heart. The tapping wasn't something I could hear anymore. It wasn't even something I could feel with my body. It was simply there, woven into the very fabric of everything. The rhythm was no longer a thing outside of me. It was in me. It was me. I felt the others again, their presence entwined with the rhythm, their voices like whispers in the wind, woven into the breath of the world. We are the rhythm, Jill's voice echoed, soft but sure, as if carried by the breeze itself. Her words were no longer just sound. They were the very pulse of the earth, the very beat of the world. We were the rhythm. We were the trees. We were the wind. We were the soil. Carson's deep voice followed, vibrating through the ground, resonating in the very air. We are the forest, he said, his voice a deep hum beneath the trees, a steady pulse that echoed through the soil. We are the memory, and we are eternal. His words, like Jill's, were woven into the fabric of the forest, into the heartbeat of the earth. They were no longer separate from the rhythm. They were the rhythm. We all were. Nika's voice joined next, soft but steady, like the rustling of leaves in the wind, the murmur of the world breathing. We are the memory, she said, her words like a whisper in the trees, the breath of the earth itself. We are the rhythm. We are part of the forest. And we are eternal. Her voice was the wind, the rustle of leaves, the groan of the trees. She was part of it all, just as I was, just as all of us were. Miles' voice came last, deep and constant, resonating like the hum of the earth itself. We are the rhythm, he said, his words vibrating through the soil, through the roots of the trees. We are the memory. We are the forest. And we are eternal. His words, too, were no longer just words. They were part of the pulse, the tapping, the rhythm of the earth. He was the rhythm. He was the heartbeat of the world. He was the earth beneath my feet. And I was with them. We were one. We were the rhythm. We were the tapping. We were the forest. We were the memory. We were eternal. The tapping quickened again, but it was not hurried. It was just the pulse of the world, the heartbeat of the earth, moving faster, like a gentle rushing of wind through the trees. The trees swayed, their branches creaking in time with the rhythm. The wind howled through the leaves, carrying the pulse with it, swirling through the forest. The earth beneath me shifted, groaning in time with the tapping. I could feel it all, every part of it. The rhythm moved through me, filled me, just as it filled the trees, the leaves, the soil. There was no separation. There was no I. There was only the rhythm, the pulse of the earth, the heartbeat of existence. I felt the others again, their presence woven into the wind, the trees, the very air around me. Jill was the rustle of the leaves, the soft murmur in the wind. Carson was the deep hum of the earth, the steady pulse beneath my feet. Nika was the shifting of the air, the quiet sigh of the trees, the whisper of the world's breath. Miles was the groan of the trees, the steady hum of the earth's heartbeat. We were one. We were the rhythm. We were the heartbeat of the earth. The tapping slowed again, settling into a deep, steady rhythm, like the earth's heart beating slowly, deeply. The trees swayed gently in time with the pulse, their branches creaking softly. The wind whispered through the leaves, carrying the rhythm with it, like a lullaby. The soil beneath me shifted in time with the beat, groaning in quiet satisfaction. I could feel it all. I was part of it. The tapping was inside me, inside every tree, every leaf, every gust of wind, every breath of air. It was the pulse of the world, the heartbeat of existence, and I was a part of it. The tapping did not fade away. It did not leave. It was always there, steady and constant, like the breath of the earth, like the heartbeat of the world. The rhythm was eternal. It was life, and it was me. I no longer knew where I ended and the forest began. The rhythm had become everything. It had become the air, the soil, the trees, the wind, the leaves, the roots. It had become the heartbeat of the world, and I was part of it. There was no before anymore. There was no after. There was only the now, the eternal now, the rhythm, the tapping, the heartbeat of the earth, and I was part of it. The trees groaned softly, their branches swaying in time with the pulse. The wind picked up again, carrying the rhythm with it, swirling through the leaves, lifting the branches in a gentle dance. The earth beneath me shifted, groaning in time with the tapping, with the rhythm of the world. The forest was alive with it, the very air humming with the pulse of existence. I was alive with it. I was the rhythm. I was the tapping. I was the forest, and I would never leave. The forest around me no longer felt like something I observed from the outside. It wasn't just the trees and the wind and the earth that surrounded me. It was me. The trees were my bones, the wind my breath, the soil my flesh. The rhythm pulsed through me as much as it pulsed through everything else. There was no separation, no distance, no outside world. There was only the now, the endless, constant now. And it was everything. I could feel the tapping deeper now, not just within me, but within everything. It was in the roots of the trees, deep beneath the soil. It was in the rhythm of the air, in the beating of the wind. It was in every branch, every leaf, every whisper of sound, every vibration that rippled through the world. It was life itself, and I was part of it. I could feel Jill again. She was the rustle of the leaves, the soft murmur of the wind. She was the air that moved through the trees, carrying the rhythm with it, spreading the pulse of life across the forest. She was in the leaves, in the branches, in the very breath of the world. Carson's presence was like the deep rumble of the earth, vibrating through my chest, through the ground beneath me. He was the steady, constant pulse beneath the surface, the hum of the world's heartbeat. I could feel him in the soil, in the roots of the trees, in the very bones of the earth. He was the foundation, the steady hum that kept the world in motion, and I was part of it. Nika's presence was like the shifting of the wind, the rustling of the leaves, the soft murmur of the world's breath. She was in the subtle movements, the quiet changes that rippled through the forest, the flow of time itself. She was the memory of everything, the past, the present, the future, all woven together in the pulse of the earth. I could feel her in every breath of wind, in every shift of the trees, in every whisper of time that passed. Miles was the groan of the trees, the deep hum of the world's heartbeat. His presence was constant, like the sound of the earth breathing, like the steady rumble of life beneath the ground. I could feel him in the deep roots, in the soil, in the rocks and stones beneath my feet. He was part of the earth, part of the world's pulse, and so was I. We were all the same. We were the rhythm. We were the forest. We were the tapping, the pulse of the earth. And we were eternal. The tapping quickened again, but it wasn't frantic. It was the pulse of the world moving faster, evolving, shifting. The trees groaned, their branches creaking in time with the beat. The wind howled through the leaves, lifting the branches in time with the pulse. The earth beneath me shifted, groaning in response to the rhythm, to the tapping. The forest was alive with it. The world was alive with it. I was alive with it. Closed eyes. But it didn't matter. I didn't need to see. The rhythm was in me. The tapping was in me. It was in my chest, in my blood, in my soul. It was everything, and I was part of it. I could feel Jill beside me, her presence woven into the air, the leaves, the trees. She was the wind, the rustling of the leaves, the subtle hum of the world's breath. She was the rhythm. She was me. I could feel Carson in the earth, deep beneath me, his presence vibrating through the ground, through the roots. He was the hum of the earth's heartbeat, the steady pulse that kept everything in motion. He was the foundation, the rhythm beneath the soil, and I was part of it. Nika was the whisper of the wind, the rustling of the leaves, the quiet flow of time itself. She was the memory of everything, the past, the present, the future, all wrapped up in the pulse of the earth. She was the breath of the forest, and I was part of it. Miles was the groan of the trees, the hum of the earth. He was the deep, steady pulse beneath everything, the heartbeat of the world. He was in the soil, in the air, in the very fabric of the forest. He was part of the rhythm, and I was part of it. We were the rhythm. We were the tapping. We were the heartbeat of the earth. And we were eternal. The tapping slowed again, returning to its deep, steady pulse. It was not fading. It was simply becoming more deeply embedded in everything. In the trees, the earth, the wind, the very air. It was the breath of the world, and I was part of it. The wind settled. The trees groaned softly in time with the pulse. The leaves rustled gently, like a lullaby. The tapping was still there, steady and constant, deep within the earth, deep in the air, deep in my soul. I was no longer separate. I was no longer I. I was the rhythm. I was the tapping. I was the forest. I was the earth. I was the wind. I was the trees. And I would never leave. The world around me seemed to breathe with me. The trees swayed gently in time with the pulse. The wind carried the rhythm with it, swirling through the branches, lifting the leaves in a soft dance. The soil beneath me shifted in time with the tapping, groaning with quiet satisfaction. The forest was alive with the rhythm. The earth was alive with it, and I was alive with it, and we were all one. I felt the tapping again, deep within me, filling every part of me, every breath I took. It wasn't a sound. It wasn't a noise. It was a presence. It was life. It was everything, and I was part of it. The rhythm quickened again, but it wasn't frantic. It wasn't urgent. It was just the pulse of the world moving faster, evolving, changing, shifting. The trees groaned in time with it, their branches creaking. The wind howled through the leaves, carrying the rhythm with it. The earth beneath me shifted, groaning, as though it too was part of the tapping. I could feel it all. The rhythm, the tapping, the heartbeat of the earth. It was in the trees. It was in the wind. It was in the soil. It was in me, and I was part of it. The tapping slowed once more, returning to its steady beat. The world seemed to settle into a deep, peaceful rhythm. The trees swayed gently in time. The leaves rustled softly. The earth shifted beneath me, groaning in satisfaction. The wind whispered through the branches, carrying the pulse with it. And the rhythm, the heartbeat of the earth, was always there. I was part of it. I would always be part of it. The forest had changed. Or perhaps it had always been this way, and I simply hadn't known it until now. The rhythm of the earth, the tapping, the pulse was no longer something I needed to hear, to feel in the conventional sense. It wasn't a sound or a vibration. It was simply being. It was the world, the forest, the trees, the soil, the air, the wind. It was all one, and I was part of it. We all were. The trees had become my bones, the roots deep in the earth pulling at my soul, twisting through the soil beneath me, connecting me to everything. The wind was my breath, swirling through the branches, lifting the leaves, dancing with the very air that surrounded me. The soil was my flesh, rich and fertile, teeming with life, pulsing with the heartbeat of the world. I could feel them, Jill, Carson, Nika, and Miles. Their presence was woven into the very fabric of the forest, of the rhythm. They were not separate from it. They were part of it. Part of me. They were the wind, the leaves, the branches. They were the tapping, the pulse. They were eternal just as I was. We are the rhythm, Jill whispered, her voice soft and sure, like the rustling of the leaves. Her words were not just sound. They were the breath of the world. We are the forest. We are the memory. And we are eternal. We are the forest. Carson's voice rumbled deep beneath the soil, vibrating through the earth, through the roots. We are the rhythm. We are the tapping. And we are eternal. We are the memory, Nika added, her voice gentle and clear, like the wind that moved through the branches, like the whisper of time itself. We are the rhythm. We are the forest. We are the tapping. And we are eternal. Miles' voice followed, deep and constant, like the hum of the earth's heartbeat. We are the rhythm. We are the memory. We are the forest. And we are eternal. And in that moment, I realized the truth of it. We were not separate from the forest. We were the forest. The tapping was our heartbeat, and the rhythm was the pulse of life. There was no before or after. There was only the now, the eternal now, and we were part of it. We always had been. The wind had died down now, the rustling of the leaves fading into a peaceful silence. The trees swayed gently in time with the rhythm, their branches creaking softly, their roots deep in the soil, connected to the heartbeat of the earth. The tapping had slowed, become a soft, steady pulse, like the slow breath of the world. It was no longer something I needed to hear or feel. It was just there, always there, in the very air around me, in the very soil beneath me, in every part of me. There was no need for words anymore. The rhythm was enough. The tapping was enough. It was everything. The trees had become the keepers of the rhythm, the guardians of the pulse of life. The wind had become the breath of the world, the breath of the forest. The soil had become the memory, the keeper of all that had come before and all that would come after. The air was the space between, the transition from one moment to the next. Time had become irrelevant. The rhythm was eternal, and we were part of it. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, feeling the rhythm in every part of me, in every part of the forest. There was no need to ask what came next. There was only the now. There was only the tapping. There was only the pulse of life. And I knew without a doubt that I was one with it. One with the forest. One with the rhythm. The silence stretched out, vast and peaceful. The tapping, the rhythm, the pulse of the earth, settled deep within me, in every part of my being, in every breath I took. It was not something I needed to search for. It was not something I had to find. It was already there, already inside me, inside everything. The tapping was the heartbeat of the world, and I was part of it. The rhythm was the pulse of life, and I was part of it. The forest was not just around me. It was within me. I had always been part of it. I had always been part of the rhythm. The world had become quiet now. The tapping had slowed to a gentle hum, a deep pulse that resonated through the air, through the trees, through the earth. The wind was still, and the trees stood tall and silent, their branches swaying gently in time with the beat. I could still feel them, Jill, Carson, Nika, and Miles. They were part of the wind, part of the trees, part of the very rhythm of the world. We were all the same now, all part of the eternal pulse, the heartbeat of the earth. There was no need for words anymore. The rhythm spoke for us all. And I realized that I had always known this, even before I had arrived in the forest, even before the tapping had begun. The forest had always been a part of me. The rhythm had always been a part of me. I had simply forgotten, lost in the world of the outside. But now I remembered. Now I understood. The tapping was not something that could be escaped. It was the pulse of the world, the pulse of existence. It was the heartbeat of life itself. And I was a part of it. I closed my eyes, or perhaps I had never opened them. It didn't matter. There was no need to see. There was only the now, only the rhythm. The tapping was in the air. It was in the trees. It was in the soil. It was in me. And I was part of it. And I always would be.